Midlife crisis brought us back together, hence the name. We're older than most people in this space, but we found NFTs about a year ago, and then we said, you know what, we're really going to create a company. As we get more connected, as we go into the metaverse, what we're about to do is meeting new people, having real raw conversations. We think it's going to become a lost art. So we're here to make that happen, to bring it all to you, and to help you expand, learn, and grow. And we came up with a very simple mission statement. That mission statement is to bring back the lost art of genuine human connection. And I got one last thing to say, and I'm dead serious when I say this. I genuinely, and Maddie genuinely believes we were put on earth to do exactly what we're doing now. We love doing this. We love meeting new people, and it just gets us so freaking excited. We think you as family, and we love you all. So, at the base and the heart of midlife crisis, not gonna lie, it's Mikey G and Maddie Mintz. And why it is because over 30 years ago, I met this crazy SOB at the 4th grade bus stop. I swear to you, when I first laid eyes on this dude, he was perpendicular to the ground, or not perpendicular, like horizontal to the ground, hanging at a 90-degree off a stop sign. And I was like, what the hell did I just get myself into? And since that, we had a budding, flourishing relationship, been best friends our whole lives. Obviously, life got in the way. You go to college, you get married, you start businesses, things happen. Fittingly enough, our midlife crisis brought us back together, hence the name. We're older than most people in this space, but we found NFTs about a year ago, and then we said, you know what, we're really gonna create a company. As we get more connected, as we go into the metaverse, what we're about to do is meeting new people, having real raw conversations. We think it's gonna become a lost art. So we're here to make that happen, to bring it all to you, and to help you expand, learn, and grow. And we came up with a very simple mission statement. That mission statement is to bring back the lost art of genuine human connection. And I got one last thing to say, and I'm dead serious when I say this. I genuinely, and Maddie genuinely believes we were put on earth to do exactly what we're doing now. We love doing this. We love meeting new people, and it just gets us so freaking excited. We think you as family, and we love you all. So, at the base and the heart of midlife crisis, not gonna lie, it's Mikey G and Maddie Mintz. And why it is because over 30 years ago, I met this crazy SOB at the 4th grade bus stop. I swear to you, when I first laid eyes on this dude, he was perpendicular to the ground, or not perpendicular, like horizontal to the ground, hanging at a 90-degree off a stop sign. And I was like, what the hell did I just get myself into? And since that, we had a budding, flourishing relationship, been best friends our whole lives. Obviously, life got in the way. You go to college, you get married, you start businesses, things happen. Fittingly enough, our midlife crisis brought us back together, hence the name. We're older than most people in this space, but we found NFTs about a year ago, and then we said, you know what, we're really gonna create a company. As we get more connected, as we go into the metaverse, what we're about to do is meeting new people, having real raw conversations. We think it's gonna become a lost art. So we're here to make that happen, to bring it all to you, and to help you expand, learn, and grow. And we came up with a very simple mission statement. That mission statement is to bring back the lost art of genuine human connection. And I got one last thing to say, and I'm dead serious when I say this. I genuinely, and Maddie genuinely believes we were put on earth to do exactly what we're doing now. We love doing this. We love meeting new people, and it just gets us so freaking excited. We think you as family, and we love you all. So, at the base and the heart of midlife crisis, not gonna lie, it's Mikey G and Maddie Mintz. And why it is because over 30 years ago, I met this crazy SOB at the 4th grade bus stop. I swear to you, when I first laid eyes on this dude, he was perpendicular to the ground, or not perpendicular, like horizontal to the ground, hanging at a 90-degree off a stop sign. And I was like, what the hell did I just get myself into? And since that, we had a budding, flourishing relationship, been best friends our whole lives. Obviously, life got in the way. You go to college, you get married, you start businesses, things happen. Fittingly enough, our midlife crisis brought us back together, hence the name. We're older than most people in this space, but we found NFTs about a year ago, and then we said, you know what, we're really gonna create a company. As we get more connected, as we go into the metaverse, what we're about to do is meeting new people, having real raw conversations. We think it's gonna become a lost art. So we're here to make that happen, to bring it all to you, and to help you expand, learn, and grow. And we came up with a very simple mission statement. That mission statement is to bring back the lost art of genuine human connection. And I got one last thing to say, and I'm dead serious when I say this. I genuinely, and Maddie genuinely believes we were put on earth to do exactly what we're doing now. We love doing this. We love meeting new people, and it just gets us so freaking excited. We think you as family, and we love you all. So, at the base and the heart of midlife crisis, not gonna lie, it's Mikey G and Maddie Mintz. And why it is because over 30 years ago, I met this crazy SOB at the 4th grade bus stop. I swear to you, when I first laid eyes on this dude, he was perpendicular to the ground, or not perpendicular, like horizontal to the ground, hanging at a 90-degree off a stop sign. And I was like, what the hell did I just get myself into? And since that, we had a budding, flourishing relationship, been best friends our whole lives. Obviously, life got in the way. You go to college, you get married, you start businesses, things happen. Fittingly enough, our midlife crisis brought us back together, hence the name. We're older than most people in this space, but we found NFTs about a year ago, and then we said, you know what, we're really gonna create a company. As we get more connected, as we go into the metaverse, what we're about to do is meeting new people, having real raw conversations. We think it's gonna become a lost art. So we're here to make that happen, to bring it all to you, and to help you expand, learn, and grow. And we came up with a very simple mission statement. That mission statement is to bring back the lost art of genuine human connection. And I got one last thing to say, and I'm dead serious when I say this. I genuinely, and Maddie genuinely believes we were put on earth to do exactly what we're doing now. We love doing this. We love meeting new people, and it just gets us so freaking excited. We think you as family, and we love you all. So, at the base and the heart of midlife crisis, not gonna lie, it's Mikey G and Maddie Mintz. And why it is because over 30 years ago, I met this crazy SOB at the 4th grade bus stop. I swear to you, when I first laid eyes on this dude, he was perpendicular to the ground, or not perpendicular, like horizontal to the ground, hanging at a 90-degree off a stop sign. And I was like, what the hell did I just get myself into? And since that, we had a budding, flourishing relationship, been best friends our whole lives. Obviously, life got in the way. You go to college, you get married, you start businesses, things happen. Fittingly enough, our midlife crisis brought us back together, hence the name. We're older than most people in this space, but we found NFTs about a year ago, and then we said, you know what, we're really gonna create a company. As we get more connected, as we go into the metaverse, what we're about to do is meeting new people, having real raw conversations. We think it's gonna become a lost art. So we're here to make that happen, to bring it all to you, and to help you expand, learn, and grow. And we came up with a very simple mission statement. That mission statement is to bring back the lost art of genuine human connection. And I got one last thing to say, and I'm dead serious when I say this. I genuinely, and Maddie genuinely believes we were put on earth to do exactly what we're doing now. We love doing this. We love meeting new people, and it just gets us so freaking excited. We think you as family, and we love you all. So, at the base and the heart of midlife crisis, not gonna lie, it's Mikey G and Maddie Mintz. And why it is because over 30 years ago, I met this crazy SOB at the 4th grade bus stop. I swear to you, when I first laid eyes on this dude, he was perpendicular to the ground, or not perpendicular, like horizontal to the ground, hanging at a 90-degree off a stop sign. And I was like, what the hell did I just get myself into? And since that, we had a budding, flourishing relationship, been best friends our whole lives. Obviously, life got in the way. You go to college, you get married, you start businesses, things happen. Fittingly enough, our midlife crisis brought us back together, hence the name. We're older than most people in this space, but we found NFTs about a year ago, and then we said, you know what, we're really gonna create a company. As we get more connected, as we go into the metaverse, what we're about to do is meeting new people, having real raw conversations. We think it's gonna become a lost art. So we're here to make that happen, to bring it all to you, and to help you expand, learn, and grow. And we came up with a very simple mission statement. That mission statement is to bring back the lost art of genuine human connection. And I got one last thing to say, and I'm dead serious when I say this. I genuinely, and Maddie, what up, folks? How's it going, Maddie? Let us know if there's reverb on YouTube, and if not, then we're good to go.
All right, I'm going to check it right
Jason,
now.
that smile is incredible. I'm just going to have to tell you, that is a fantastic smile, brother. But I cannot wait for this conversation. It's going to be amazing. We're going to have a blast. Maddie, before we start our epic conversation, how you doing, bro? We had the weekend.
Yeah.
What did you do?
By the way, I
vibe?
do not hear any reverb, but I'll wait to hear my voice.
Hell yeah.
Dude, had an amazing weekend. Great weather. No complaints whatsoever. Give me 1 second here.
Mm-hmm. Pretty little liar. Do you sound good?
I sound like a robot. That's weird. I don't know why it does that.
All right, that's fine. We're shutting it down.
Yep. God said it. Robotic for Maddie. But anyway.
Twitter space is shut down. It's over.
To answer your question, weekend was fantastic. Weather's been amazing. And loving life, man. Work's good. Everything is good. I'm a little thrown off by some recent current events.
Okay.
There is a man who is suing the company Texas Pete because he found out that Texas Pete hot sauce is not from Texas.
Oh, get the hell out of here. That's a big deal. You can't
It's the little things. It's the little things.
You can't brand your product Texas if you're not from Texas.
Apparently, the dude's from North Carolina.
Dude, I'm a brand advertising guy. That's false advertising, and I don't like it. All right? I don't like it at all. Well, I'm glad that shook you up. But I'm glad you had a good weekend, man. I chilled out. Man. I vibed myself. I didn't do much. I did get a COVID booster shot Saturday. Not going to lie. Felt like shit on Sunday. Thought I was going to be good. All the other boosters, I was totally cool. But yeah, Sunday I was out. I just slept and woke up, watched a little football, and went back to bed. But overall, super chill.
Yeah, man.
But yeah, man, I'm excited. Look at all the people. We got God in chat. We got Kurt. Good to see you, Kurt.
There's Kurt. Good to see you.
Bonji. All of the OGs here. But we have a treat of a guest for you tonight. And so, Jason, man, welcome to the show. I'm so glad that you're here. And I think we're going to have an amazing conversation. How you doing, man?
Man, I'm super fantastic. Thanks so much for having me here. I really appreciate you allowing me on the stage. It's going to be fun. I agree with you.
Oh, dude, thank you so much. little fact though, before we ask Jasun the famous midlife crisis question, and that is, Jasun was actually a spy in a past life. You want to talk about one of the most elusive, secretive guests that have been on the midlife crisis stage? You're looking at him right now. And I'm assuming that spy background has led to passion for cybersecurity, Web3, being safe on the internet, which we will be talking about later. But before that, I had the pleasure of meeting Jasun in a random Twitter space. And I heard him speak, and I was like, dude, this guy is a fantastic speaker, has an interesting story, reached out to him on Twitter. We had a phone conversation. We said, this probably makes sense to get you on the show because I think our community can benefit from Jasun's beautiful mind, and we can give Jasun some exposure. So really excited for the conversation, man. Thank you so much for taking the time and being here. And with that being said, the world famous, and it's not world famous yet, but it will be world famous.
Mike, I feel like you are missing an opportunity to say he doesn't always drink beer, but when he does, he drinks Modelo.
That is true.
Okay, just saying.
Plug Modelo.
There it is. You're welcome, Modelo.
All right, Modelo. Dude, 100% we're tagging that and cutting that for you, Jasun. We'll be sending that little clip your way. With that being said, the most mysterious man in the world is on our show, and we have the one world-class famous midlife crisis question, and that is, Jasun, how did you get the seat you're sitting in today? Please give us episode 1, 2, and 3 of your Star Wars story, and then we'll just have a blast together.
Yep. That sounds fantastic. I appreciate that opportunity. I'm looking up. I'd definitely like to give eye contact, but I'm creating this answer for you so we can go down this journey as smoothly as possible. So
take your time and just feel rest assured that I have screwed this show up so many times. There is nothing that you can do on camera that is worse than what I've done. So
I doubt that.
Take
but okay.
your time, brother.
Creating this. So to answer your question directly, how did I get here? First and foremost, the only way I got here was through a number of failures, a number of continuous failures. It's a learning lesson every day, but my journey is probably a little bit more unorthodox than most. First and foremost, you're talking to, an owner of a cyber security and privacy crisis mitigation firm that got kicked out of high school, has a GED. You're talking to a guy that comes from literally, 3 years in juvenile, used to be a gang member. I'm not proud of any of this. I am not ashamed of it, but I'm giving you that background because it provides the context of where I am now. As a child, I struggled with a lot of, things. As a Black child, I struggled with a lot of things, fitting in, moving around. So I found myself really always associating with the criminal element, not because I felt like I was a part of it, but I felt more at home with it.
Right. And
it wasn't because it was criminality that I was attracted to. It was more of the underdogs that were collecting or communicating to congregating together, that while they had a very nefarious cause, I understood that mindset. Long story short, though, that mindset and that type of activity got me in a lot of trouble. I got in so much trouble that when I was 16, the judge, I had just been extradited from one state to another, and 14-year-old traveling on a plane, and I remember violating probation again, and the judge said, listen, we're gonna have to put you in 5 years. He was talking, very relaxed, and my probation officer said, hey, I think this guy can really do good in the Navy or do good in the military. Can you give him an opportunity? And it was that point in my life that it changed everything about how I viewed the world.
Yeah.
I realized in the Navy that, there's more than black and white. There's more than us and them. There's more than this separation that I had always been brought up in.
Yeah.
And it started to expand my understanding of humans. And I understood that the crime that I used to be a part of on a grander scale is contributing to the negativity that I'm fighting for, fighting against rather.
Right.
Yeah.
So the Navy, I joined the Navy joined in the intel community rather. I was a information technology and intelligence analyst. And I would say it was 4 years in the Navy. I was in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. This was right before Guantanamo Bay, Cuba turned into the Fort Gitmo that most people know, the detainee operations base.
Mm-hmm.
I started working for a 3-letter intelligence agency. I got the approach, they approached me. I don't really want to get into details, but the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, asked me if I'd like to serve my country in another capacity. And at the time, I was doing a lot of IT technical intelligence work, but the cyber domain, how I got directly into cyber was that conversation in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba.
Interesting.
And after about 12 years working with different various intelligence agencies, finding hackers or doing cyber exploitation, identifying cyber crime and cyber terrorists, I got into the policy element of it. And I realized that not only did I have a gift for understanding how cyber criminality works, I understand how to create the safeguards for it in a more like beautiful mind type scale, if that makes sense. Like it's
no,
like
definitely
I see it. I don't see it, I don't see the same things that other people see when they see problems. When stress is getting into some people, they get antsy, or their autonomous responses is to make them clam up or lose their mental faculty or percentages of their mental faculty. For some reason, with me, I understand problems in a more poetic sense. I see them differently, so it puts me at ease.
Yeah.
And I realize that superpower, so to speak, is something that gives me an ability not to be so subjective in my reasoning and in my deduction processes of evaluating problems. And also, of course, in tandem with having a multitude of experience with the government and doing fun spy cyber stuff, for the government, which we don't have to get into right now, I realized that not only do I have a power, but I also have a calling. It's also something that I was gifted with. I think that being able to provide solutions for people that can't outthink or can't think through the stress, can't think through the problems due to whatever energies that are blocking or interacting with them. It's something that I had to do. I was working, after I left the government, I went to go work for a small company called Humana. And I was their chief internal auditor, chief cyber intelligence officer, chief cyber internal auditor. And I did, auditing for them for a little bit, technical things, looking at HIPAA and stuff. And then I realized that the civilian market really wasn't for me, but I against better judgment, I went to go work for another small company called Experian. And I was the chief information security officer. And this is going to get to the answer that you're looking for, because I can go into all of the nuances and crevices of my experience, but this is what I realized I needed to be where you're talking to the guy, the gentleman, the alchemist, the sailor, the positive person that you're speaking to now came from this experience. I had just gotten my last engagement with the government, and I was in Lebanon. Something very traumatic happened to me, and I had to rethink my life. And I really thought, I was like, do I still want to work for the government? Do I still want to go out here and do I love my country, number one? And do I want to be a patriot, number two? Do I want to continue to put my life on the line for this? Or is it time for me to live my own life? And, at the time I was 30 years old, that was a very strong and deep and probably one of the deepest conversations I'd ever had with myself at the time. I had identified all of the goodness in my life with the United States government. Everything good about Jasun Aaron Lamar Tate had at that point in time had only come from my interaction with the government. Right. Because Jasun Aaron Lamar Tate was a bit of a terrorist, a bit of a handful, before he was in the military. Right. So I had that conversation with myself, and I realized that I needed to figure out who I am and what I'm capable of. At that time I was, like I said, 30. You're talking to a guy, like I said before, I got kicked out of high school. So I got my GED right before I went to the Navy in a Job Corps. Went to Job Corps for building and part maintenance, but had nothing else, just a GED. And of course I'd done some college, when I was working with the government, but I tried out Humana, and that was sour. And then I got picked up, or I got a phone call from, at the time, a very high executive at Experian, and they had told me they had seen my work and they've been watching or whatever. So I applied and I got the job, and I realized 7 months in that all I was doing was figuring out ways to scam people. And I'm going to dig into that. I was
this
I
is
was
interesting.
charged. Well, yeah, 100%. So I was, and this is, of course, I'm condensing this for this conversation so it's more manageable and digestible for your audience. But
well, this will be the first of many. Let's clarify this. I'm already insanely intrigued. I appreciate you condensing it down, but honestly, like you have the forum, so if you want to go down a rabbit hole on something that you think is interesting, like please don't hesitate.
No problem. All right, cool. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
So, at that point in time when I took on the job, just to be perfectly honest and 100% transparent, I had been living a very lavish lifestyle. Money in the government services while you work. If you work directly for the government, you're in the GS scale, or if you work directly in the GS pay grades, you don't really get the perks of being of getting the financial rewards of being a contractor like I was.
Sure.
So, coming from a GD guy, Navy, never really seeing wealth in his lifetime, former dope dealer, former street guy, whatever you call it. I don't want to identify with street, but just a guy that was a little bit different and off-center, not coming from much, going from, overnight salary, military pay to making, 6 digits overnight, tax-free. Whatever that 6 digits was a bunch of money. And I lived that life for about, 15 years, from 20 years old, to 30. I was living a very fast-paced life, and I really appreciate every experience. So I said it to say this: when Experian called me, while I had that bad taste in my mouth with corporate America, I still craved the materialistic things. I was still sophomoric in my mental, maturity. And I still identified my persona, my identity with the amount of money I was able to generate. So they offered me some figures I had never seen before. Literally had never seen before. First thing I did when I got the job, I bought a Porsche, like just a brand off the lot, just in cash. It was ridiculous. So I understood, though. I didn't understand at the time. I was like, this is going to be a cakewalk. Nobody can do cyber like Jason does cyber. I'm the best at it. Not an ego thing. I'm only speaking it because at the time I can even hear myself saying it to myself. Like, I was self-confidence. Like, you're the baddest guy when it comes to cyber, the things you've done, the way you've changed this world. So that's what I would tell myself, because I was walking into a building full of people that didn't look like me. There was probably 5 African Americans in the whole building that I was operating in. And they were not in the executive staff where I was, just to put things a little clearly. So I would say and sing my own music because I was dealing with a lot of things all the time. And I would say, okay, well, I'm making the money. I can deal with it this way. And you're the best at what you're doing. So don't mind what, whatever little jabs people throw at you. You're bigger than that. I would do these things. And over time, I realized that, okay, it's time to show up. And one day I woke up, I realized that what I was doing every day was using my wordplay, my ability to articulate things outside of the capacity or digesting capacity for other people, so that we could avoid audits, so that people wouldn't classify what we were doing as illegal. And it really resonated with me. It hit me because there was the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak. There was a time when a senior executive there had pulled me into the office and asked me about evaluating a certain program where they would take information from Americans and sell it to anybody that was asking. And more specifically, that program was supposed to be for a DoD client as well. So what they had asked me to do, for all intents and purposes, was to differentiate one process, but one articulated in a way that it's legal for both. And I know I could sound a little bit
No. I understand what you're saying. That perfectly clear with what you said.
Oh, groovy. Thank you. So at that point in time, I remember sitting back and, I did my internal law of deduction. I said, okay, so, what am I really hurting here if I do this? Number 2, I identified to myself, like, you're a sellout, right? And I would say this to myself. So this is the internal dialogue that I was having with my true self. And this is that night. I went home, At the time, the person that I was dating was working in finance, and I laid it out, and that person knew me and said, "So you went from literally seeing people die on the battlefield, literally getting kidnapped, literally everything that is a traumatic experience in your life. You did that because you thought what you were doing at a certain point in your life was the right thing to do, protect the intelligence of the United States of America. And now you're working for a company that wants to sell it, and you're having an internal debate on how to articulate it so it doesn't sound like you're serving the poison to the people that basically don't need it." So after that conversation, I literally walked in the next day, and I never smoked marijuana. Like, true story. At that point in time, I maybe smoked it once or twice, but I had literally asked a friend. I said, "Hey, I need a joint." I hit a joint before I walked into the office, and I packed up my stuff, and I was deuces. I quit, and I'm not going to get into all the dialogue that happened. But after I walked out the front door with the keys, because I was probably one of the most I had a lot of access to the company at the time.
Right.
So it was a very sensitive conversation, especially at this point I had taken off all of the tailored, reserved nature of myself. My articulation change.
I'm thinking like, Jerry Maguire right now. Like, you're in there and you're just laying down the law. Who's with me? Because I'm out of this bitch.
With a goldfish in a Ziploc bag.
It was a little bit more abrasive than that, but it was more eccentric. It was more like, imagine me in a suit and I'm taking off my tie and I'm really expressing how I feel.
Right.
And I'm not saying it like this. I'm like, yo, so I'm talking like this right now. Right. Check this out. And this is what's going on. There was no reservation. There was nothing that was keeping me on my toes. And I felt good. It felt so good that the first thing that I did after I basically walked out, I got on the phone with a friend of mine who ran a breach intelligence service, who did darknet intelligence for business, for high net worth individuals, politicians. Right. Very unique service that he provided. And I told him about it. He said, "Hey, man, I got this guy you need to talk to. His name is Brian Krebs." I'm like, "I know who Brian Krebs is. He's a famous reporter. He's a tech reporter." He's like, "Yeah, you need to tell me your whole story." I'm like, "You got me," literally, I'm like, "I'm not a snitch. I don't care about that. I don't snitch. This is not how it works." And he's like, right. "No, you need to grow up. This is what you need to do. Blow the whistle on it." So if you ever decide in any time in your life to type in my name, JASUNTATE, and then type in Experian or Brian Krebs, you'll see all the DOJ documents, lawsuits that have been filed. So I blew the whistle on them. And at that point is when I realized that I didn't know where I was going in life. I didn't have an idea or an understanding about who the true personality of Jason Tate was. There were so many facades, so many different personalities that I could apply and put onto myself, but there was no real true identity of self at that time at 30-something years old. I was realizing that. I said, I don't know who I am. I'm whoever I decide to be, but how do I find out who I am? So for about a year, I went on a journey, got in my car, and I literally went homeless for a year. Lived on the street, lived out the car, not because, of course, finances that were available. I wanted to touch. I told myself I wanted to feel again, but I didn't want to feel like the government made me feel. And I didn't really have a large network or a large memory store of experiences in life other than what I had been doing. Yeah. So I hit the road.
I said, yeah, no, this is fascinating.
Yeah. So, and I didn't take a computer. It was not the Hacker J. This was, hey, this is Lord Liam Nielsen and taking I have a few skills given to me by the United States government. Yeah. But I'm just and I lived like that. I literally, I lived off of Bitcoin. And then at some point in time, I remember reaching out to a friend of mine, or somebody on Facebook had said, "Hey man, what are you doing?" And I said, "I'm at a coffee shop right now, just hacking into," and I was being serious and I was saying it so naturally. He's like, "Man, you know what you should do? You should record some of this stuff." And I'm like, "Nah, I'm good with that." But long story short, after that conversation, that same person was like, "Hey, I believe in you. I think you need to start your own business." And I didn't have any business. I still don't have any real business understanding. And that was the first time. He said, "What do you like to do?" I said, "Well, I don't need charity, man." He's like, no. He said, "I want to save the world just like you do. And I know that you're just not right now in the mood to do it because you're out there doing whatever you're doing and I was doing depths of insanity. We're not even going to talk about that. It's still, you know, statutes of limitation on things I was doing during that time. So I'm just being serious.
I love this.
So,
This is awesome.
So, you said I could be real. I thought this was the same.
Dude, this is it.
This is what we literally love doing, and you're just fulfilling you're manifesting everything that I love about what we're doing, and just convincing me more that this is where I'm meant to be in life.
Man. Yes, I'm with that. Yes, this is your sign. So, because you are fantastic at this.
Thank you.
So, you're welcome. So, at that point in time, that gentleman, which turned out to be my business partner, he said, "I need you to tell me what is it that you want." And I said, I want people to know that there's a devil out there, like not in a religious way, not in a spiritual way, because that's not, I'm an alchemist. So, we think differently. We can talk about that later. But I said, at the end of the day, I need the world, because remind you, this is back in 2015. So this is when the old Jason that you're talking to now was fully engaged, fully engaged in, when he worked for the government, with Chinese cyber exploitation or cyber actors that were breaking into U.S. infrastructure, and secretly, like, this wasn't in the news. I was full of all the top secret, like every operation mission. I knew that there are forces. I was predicting then what is happening now when you see on the world stage, what you see in the news about cyber breaches, China, Russia's, all these things that are happening. I knew this was going to happen.
Yeah.
And I would tell, but I would kind of pull myself back, because I'm like, the world has to happen. The world has to happen. So when he asked me that question, it was an opportunity for my internal dialogue to speak to my conscious mind and express that I need the world to know that there's a devil out there. And at least for the people who can't protect themselves, provide some kind of layer of protection. And it rolled off my tongue at that time so smoothly, because I was like, I just want to help people be better at understanding how things are going out. Because at that time, I was looking at the news and I was like, oh man, it's about to happen. Like, okay, so China's going to start, and then what's going to happen? America's going to start creating cybersecurity companies. And, it was the beautiful mind, that's where I got that from. So not necessarily all of it was tangible, but it was definitely very literal, in the sense that what's going to happen next, based off of the weaknesses that the United States has in a cyber capacity, is about to be illuminated, and multiple states are going to start taking advantage of it. So when I told him that, his words were, hey, I'm with that. So what do you want to do about it? I said, well, let me just write articles, talk about my former life, and talk about some of the things that I use to exploit people, so that people can take that information and extract, meaningful data and mitigations to keep them protected. And he was like, I'm with that. So we created a company called Bits and Digits. It's still out there, www.bitsdigits.news. Did a lot of article writing, and I was releasing. I was pressing a lot of. I was. What's it called when you open a boil? I was releasing that pressure of a boil. Like I was releasing all of that energy, and writing helped me do that. So we did this for about a year, 2 years. No, we did this for 2.5 years, 3 years, until I started getting calls from people who wanted things done. And at that time it was a news agency, so me actually getting out and interacting with any brand, or helping these brands and these celebrities that started calling us, like, literally, I was like, well, that would make me a little biased. And I think that really aligns with the news, giving news and doing something. So I told my business partner at the time, Dolphy, shout out Dolphy, I love you, man. Wouldn't be here without you. But anyway, so I told Dolphy, I was like, look, man, I got to start my own company. I got to do something a little bit more. I got to create the activities arm, if you will, of Bits and Digits, which is where we come to Black Alchemy Solutions. We are a cyber crisis mitigation firm. And the guy you're talking to now, and the voice that you heard on those spaces, is filled with passion, and is filled with a lot of energy to express to people that while there may be big bad wolves that you can't see, can't feel, or can't perceive, it's imperative that you pay attention to the safeguards and tactics, techniques, and protocols for living a more secure and vigilant life. Yeah. And that's not just from a technical perspective. It's more of a, I think it's a human right. I don't think this, actually. I know it's our birthright to be free. Right. And freedom is not, I don't mean freedom in the sense of American freedom. I'm talking about as humans, as humans in this existence that we have here. We're born with certain freedoms and liberties that are systematically being removed from people, not from some conspiratory controlling arm and Illuminati. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying people as a species, we're becoming so codependent on technology that we're reducing the amount of energy that we have in our mental faculties to process things on our own. So we're giving up a lot of our decisioning to technology.
Right.
We're giving a lot of our decisioning to cyber exploitation engineers. We're giving our cyber scammers. We're giving a lot of our decisioning to NFT promoters and influencers who are telling us to do things. And a lot of people don't have the mental faculty or the acknowledgement that their center is being convinced or being manipulated in another way or form. And that's how you're talking to this guy now. I realize that my purpose is to shed that light.
Dude, I love that. I mean, to kind of dumb down what you just said, I think the other way to say it is like, listen, people, the internet is not free. The internet exists because of your data and company making a shit ton of money off of it. All of these luxuries and lives that we think are free are not free.
And it's not just your data, right? Data in itself is useless. Using that data to elicit a response, right? To manipulate. That's what's profitable, right? Can I get you to vote for X? Can I get you to buy product Y? That's what's lucrative, right? And so if you give up your autonomy because you can't stop scrolling, you sacrifice that.
Yeah. Well, Jason, damn, dude. That was like multiple episodes wrapped up in one, but I can't wait to continue to talk. But if you keep on going, I'm going to lose all of the amazing questions I already have in my head. Maddie, do you want to go first? Or because I know you're chomping at the bit.
Yeah, I write my questions down, so I'm okay. So why don't you go since you have them in your head?
I probably should start doing that, but I'm an off the cuff type of guy. So the thing that struck me the most is so you said a couple things that immediately resonated with me. You said superpower. I thoroughly am convinced everybody has a superpower in this world. It's whether or not you find it in your lifetime. Fortunately, you found yours. Fortunately, I think Maddie and I have found ours, right? But to get to that superpower, you also mentioned an extremely traumatic event, right? I, too, went through a very traumatic event to then find my superpower and do a lot of self-realization like you have done too. What's interesting to me about what you said, though, is it seems like, and you even talked about your former selves in the third person, right? So you said the first kind of like aha moment was the trauma and getting out of the government, right? And I think my question is, does that one stick out in your mind above all else? Or is there like a series of these just like self-reflection moments that have kind of brought you to who you are today? Like, I love to hear you kind of reflect about that and walk us through kind of your evolution of your thinking as you hit these different milestones.
Thank you for that. That's a good question. It's allowing me to dig deeper into a side of me that I haven't touched in a while. So thank you.
Yeah.
So it's interesting how we experience and then we can apply at certain elements of our experience. We have the capacity to apply that wisdom of that experience to decisions in the future versus replaying them.
Yeah.
I wanted to answer that. I want to start with that statement before I answer.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So when I had that eureka moment, it really wasn't a eureka moment of sorts. It was more of a there's more.
Okay.
There's something I live by now that at the time I didn't live by because I didn't know it exists, but it's TBT, thoughts become things. And then I didn't know that I had always had situations in my life where I felt like something was different. I felt as if, while, at 6 years old, hiding under a church, an abandoned church, because I ran away because my father was beating me. I'm saying, bring this for a reason. I remember sitting there thinking, there's something more. I can chill out in this blizzard. This is the blizzard. This is the blizzard of Atlanta, Georgia, back in like 98 or 90, not 98, 91, 92. And I was supposed to be dead, right? So, there was no, I didn't have a big coat on. I remember thinking to myself, there's something different out here. And I bring that up for a reason. As when we go, and as in my journey, as I delve deep into my capacity of who I was and thoughts of my internal self, those original thoughts helped me to go forward into another experience, which made me also think that this life that I'm living is more of a simulation more than an experience at times. And that's before I got to alchemy and understanding what's really happening here. So I'm saying that to say this. Every time that it was necessary for me to move into a different space in life, for me to understand and leverage the previous experiences as a guidepost for the future that can also provide light to others, a certain type of struggle, it also took a certain type of thinking. A thinking that required me to think outside that box. I didn't want to go around my elbow to get to my neck on that, but I hope that did that touch the answer?
Yeah, no, I actually have never heard somebody explain it that way. I like to follow that up, I really like this explanation of so these experiences created a different way of thinking, right? Can you describe some examples like that? Because I think people would be, and I am interested in saying like, okay, so where's like, one, how are you defining certain ways of thinking? Are we talking religious, good, bad, how I am as a person, and then what are those varied ways of thinking?
Yo, that's deep. We're having deep conversation. I love it. So first, let's talk about my understanding at the time of religion, because I was raised in a very religious house.
Yeah.
I never really aligned with the energy of religion, not because of a spiritual, because I thought there was bad or good and devil's bad. No. It's because I didn't feel the sincerity of the message that was given to me at the time. When I would go to church. I used to go to this church that was run by a guy named Creflo Dollar, World Changers Ministries. And while I felt the energy, I only dropped that because he's gotten big now apparently.
Yeah,
he's a huge name. Yeah, no, I get it. I know who he is.
So I never understood when I would go to church, and I'm bringing this up for a reason. I'm not talking about religion because everything has a purpose and everything is valid.
Yeah,
sure.
I wouldn't be at the position I'm at right now, in my journey of spirituality, had I not been a Christian before, a devout one, right? Or one that understood it, at least. So, I'm going to get to answer your question about the mindsets. I never really got religion. I felt people were telling me what to do and telling me how to think. And anytime that happened, there was something inside of me that said, hey, just buck it. Like, what happens if you do say that? Like, it was just a very adversarial voice that would tell me, listen, there's something outside of the way that they're trying to tell you to think.
Right.
And it was that little voice that from the age of 7 to even now at 41 years old, I still have that. Thank whatever my angels, my ancestors, all of my spiritual guides, that little voice, which I know it to be mine, is an exploratory voice that let me know that the way and everything that you're conceiving right now can be thought of outside of that box. Oh, wow. I just came to a realization of even the words articulated. Whenever I have that voice kick in, or whenever I'm in a situation where I feel I've reached the fullest capacity of the intelligence it had to offer, or if I find myself in a dire strait, something tells me that your human mind right now only has the capacity to see what it's seeing. But if you expand yourself, relax, there's a way that you can see deeper. And I started to get into martial arts around this time too, where Tai Chi was, one of my favorite arts. Taught me about chi, the movement of energy and how things move. And I think that was really the catalyst that started the whole real TBT, thoughts become things. This is so much more than what people are telling me, because you're sitting here telling me I can hold my hands this way and I can breathe a certain way. And then I'll start getting heat and I'll start feeling emissions from some source that you call Mother Nature. And that's not in the Bible. And I can hurt people this way. And then the physics and mechanics of fighting added with that certain type of energy can also heal and it can hurt. that started to tell me that, okay, nobody knows what's going on. This is a guessing game. This whole reality, somebody's telling me one way to think, and you're telling me I'm not going to be anything because you've been taught that, or I've been taught, and I've been to this, but I'm like, look, I got a GED. I got a GED. I've worked for almost every intelligence. Are you serious? Do you know who I like when that voice comes in, it's not an ego thing. It's more of a, you can think past this. There's something beyond it. And that's the hacker mindset. And that's really, it's actually 100% what a hacker really is. A hacker is a person or an entity that understands that the things that is around him are created a certain way and can program them or manipulate them to operate in their favor or in an alternate way of its initial design. That is what a hacker is.
Right.
And that's what an alchemist. Go ahead.
Go ahead. So, well, I was gonna say, so the, but besides what the subject matter is the mentality of these different phases of your life. Is it more? That's, I think, what I'm trying to get at too, is like, what are the evolutions of the thought process? Is it that exactly saying, every time you felt like you got to a place where you thought you knew everything, you force yourself to say, hey, I need to think outside the box because there's more? Is that kind of it, or is there something I'm missing?
It's not a more. It's not a more variable. It's a variable of. Is this what you're supposed to be doing? Is this it? Not more, because more was, I've lived in the more.
Right.
I've lived in the chasing.
Right.
This is more of a voice of a, I think you've reached this capacity. I think.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, that totally makes sense. Dude, sorry. I didn't mean to. I wanted to just add that in there, but I feel like you still had a thought. Did you want to finish your thought?
Oh, no. Everything's copacetic. Everything's smooth.
All right, Matty. I know you. Yeah. Matt has like 10 million questions, God, I'm sure. So go for it, Matty.
Yeah. Well, in response to what you just said, it's very interesting because where I can relate is this. I wouldn't say I grew up profoundly religious. However, I found that later in life, and it's interesting because two people that are pretty big influences me. I found martial arts at 7. I love everything you were saying there. I have a degree in engineering, but physics is one of my favorite subjects. And it was interesting you were talking about the flow of energy, right? And growing up as a child in martial arts and learning about, as you were saying, how energy moves, it was interesting then learning the actual practicality behind that and seeing, okay, that there's real math to this, right? This isn't just hocus pocus. And so I think that there's a real connection that can be made there, and I get why that connected and vibed with you for sure. I relate 100%. You know what I mean? I think that it's interesting though, is because like religion, martial arts can become somewhat. It can become kind of hocus pocus, right? Depending on where you go, right? You get a lot of Rex Kwon Dos out there, and so you have to be careful, right? Because people will use that to manipulate others the same way people will use religion to do the same thing, right? Or at a church or whatever it might be, some churches are just about that offering plate, and so you have to be able to distinguish that. I think it's interesting because in your example of Christianity, I was very abrasive with that same concept, right? The whole concept of like just bucket. It's interesting though, when I actually started reading about it, reading the actual book, the person who it's professed to be about is exactly what you just said, right? In fact, he was killed for that very reason, for bucking the established thought process, right? The Pharisees were the established thought process there. And I just think it's very interesting because you're making mental connections, say in the same way I did. And so I was not for the establishment, but I was all about the guy who bucked it. Do you know what I'm saying? And said, wait a second, there's a different way to think about this. Same way Bruce Lee was one of my it was one of my big mentors and role models, and obviously he studied philosophy, but his concept of how to stop making it about these rules, and you can learn to unlock yourself. And so anyway, that's not a lot about where my questions were going to go. It just really vibed when you said that, because I was like, I totally get what you're saying, and I also have a lot of very similar influences in that same vein. What I think is interesting is Mike hit on superpower, right? And you described your superpower as being calm under pressure. And to me, that is a indicator of a superpower, right? When I see a school teacher that can handle kindergartners, I see chaos. I see Arnold and Kindergarten Cop, right? I am not calm in that situation, but you can see somebody go in there and they can handle it and they have a little process. And it's like, man, they're really good in this spot, right? Because they're able to remain calm in a place that would be chaotic for most of others. And I think it's interesting that you found your calm under pressure in the chaos of what. Look, if I see an alert on the bottom right of my computer screen, I get anxious. You know what I mean? And so I am not calm under pressure when it comes to that kind of technology. I get upset when I have to download a new app. Mike will tell you, it drives me insane. He always wants me to download 28 different apps just to do the exact same thing. And I'm like, and so
by the way, we're all 41 here. Matt acts like he's 65 when it comes to technology.
Got it.
Okay, but here's the difference, though, right? I'll concede to that. I'll concede to that. However, in an actual panic situation, ask which house Mike wants to go to. Do you know what I'm saying? And so it's like we have our strengths, we have our weaknesses. But my point, though, is that I think it's interesting that you found calm there. And I think it's interesting because when you find that calm, what you find is what you described is clarity. And that clarity allowed you to really step outside of what most people are going to see it. And you were talking about being able to, you were talking about alchemy, but in that specific situation, you described it as the beautiful mind concept. You know what I mean? And I think that right there is a massive indicator that you are in your calling or you are in your superpower.
Yes.
Because you can start thinking outside the box. And I think that that's a really cool thing, because to me, that's an indicator that you have indeed found what you're meant to do. And I just think it's really awesome that you're pursuing it. And so here's my question. That was after you joined. I want to rewind even more. Help me with this. You joined the Navy. What was it in the Navy? So something switched, because you can't go from GED, gangs, juvenile detention to patriotic without something happening. And I want to know how that bridge happened, because that's what really kind of helped you flow. If it wasn't for that, you wouldn't have had your dichotomy that you had to face, which was patriotism versus self-made, do I do this for myself? And so how do we get to patriotic? How did that bridge happen?
Great question.
It felt like a community that I wanted to be a part of. That's it. That's 100%.
Listen to that, man. That's kind of profound, man. Like, no, but that makes sense, right?
And the military is good at that, by the way. They have that down to an art.
Good at that.
I think they created a whole doctrine on that, how to create.
They're
very good at that.
But think about Web3 and NFTs, man. What is the number one thing people say is community? We are tribal people, and we want to be accepted and wanted and be a part of a community and feel like, we're adding to it and doing good. That's a good answer, man.
So basically you were part of this community, and I get it, man, because the community, it hammers you with, it's like that flag is above a lot of things, you know what I mean? And so it pushes you towards that. So basically you were indoctrinated in that by joining the Navy. You believed in it. Whatever 3-letter agency who recruited you used that to essentially say, hey, keep serving your country. That's what put you in a position to get to where you were, to your dilemma, right? And that's where I want to talk about now. So how did you, because I think this is important, because there's a lot of people who will listen to this, because we'll cut these clips up. People hit that point, right? It's a crossroads. What do you do when you're in that crossroads where it's like, man, I want to do this or this? And you said it was the toughest point at that point in your life that you had to kind of figure out for yourself. What's your advice on how you were able to get through that? And what would you tell other people who are maybe facing that or will face that to get through that pool? Because I had to do that exact same thing it was very similar to yours.
Thank you for that question. That's a good question. It's a great question. All questions are great, but these are really hitting some serious points of growth. So to your audience specifically, and for us, even for myself, I think one of the biggest things that allowed me to move forward was self-discovery. and I know, as you can understand as a martial artist as well, when we start to understand our weaknesses on a more intimate and more romantic level, we get to become more in tune with the world. The more we understand ourselves and the weaknesses we have, we see the world differently. We have different capacity for compassion. We're able
100%.
to, we're able to do those things on a different scale. It's a more communal sense. So to answer your question though, when I got to the point where I realized there's more, or there could be something more, or that, let's just say, the beautiful mind or the hacker mindset clicked in, what came to my mind was more of a, am I doing all that I can with all that I have?
Mm-hmm.
And I do want to back up a little bit, because I definitely think I cheated you out of a very meaningful definition of what that switch was. Because I'm not that guy. I'm not the Navy SEAL. Well, I have a lot of SEAL brothers and friends, and I'm not that Special Forces guy. I have a lot of those friends. I work with primarily most Green Berets. Well, I work with them mostly, but I was the guy that could provide a different way of thinking to those kind of people. I wasn't that type of patriot. I wasn't that type of Crip. I wasn't a Crip that wanted to go around just beating up or doing stupid things because I was just wearing blue. No. I liked the ideology at the time until it got ridiculous. I liked being that secret weapon for people at the time. Back then, even in the streets, I was like, okay, well, look, man, I can think this out for you. And in the military, I was in the government. I'll give you a real quick one. I don't want to take up much more of your time. But there was a scenario that really launched me from understanding what I was doing in the Navy to realizing that what I was doing was in my purpose, and I was just so happy to be in the Navy.
Sure.
You can open up Google if you choose to, but there's two ships that got in a wreck in naval history. Really big, significant one was the USS Denver and the USNS Niagara Falls. Big ocean of water, two ships, all that water, they run into each other. Big problems obviously had to happen. When two ships run across, we ended up losing our crypto. It was a big thing, all in the news. I was in the deck. I literally was calling out the shot. I was calling out our whiskey, is what we call it. I was calling out our coordinates, over to the captain on the bridge in the other ship. And I was telling him, hey, you're coming in too close, and Venturi effect. Long story short, we lost a lot of crypto, cryptographic keys, not crypto.
I was going to say, shit, how much Bitcoin was on that ship?
Yeah, I had to make that correction. I say I'm an OG, so crypto for me is like cryptologic keys, like real stuff.
Right.
So, right. National secrets, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So what happened was we lost due to a number of circumstances that we don't have to talk about here, but a lot of circumstances took place where we lost our crypto. So we did not have the ability as a United States military ship to communicate our IFF, which stands for identification of friend or foe, a beacon that went out, signals other ships around us to let us know that, hey, look, these guys are not an enemy ship, don't fire nothing. We lost all of that. We lost the ability to communicate securely. Captain calls me up. I was 17. I was 17. I want you to hear this. I was 17. Right. And I had only been to school for a year, right? So I'm 17, GED. He didn't call the chief. He didn't call the watch officer. He didn't call the 4 other people that were more skilled at that job. He called me in his office. And I didn't question why he called me into the office until after I left his office. But he called me in the office and he said, Seaman Tate, I need to know what we can do to get back up. And I looked at him in his eyes and I said, well, I don't know what the chief has told you, but I think the chief could tell you what ways we can get back up online if we had any. And he's like, he looked me back and he says, Seaman Tate, I know exactly who you are. I need you to give me the options. Let's just pretend for a second. He said this. There's nothing legal that you could get in trouble with, and there's nothing that somebody will lock you up. Can you give me an idea or some options? And I remember something unlocked, and it said, tell him the truth. And I said, yeah, well, what I would do if I was to break in, if I was like a bad guy, I would just replay the old key. And I gave him this whole scenario. It was completely illegal, completely against everything you're supposed to do in the cryptological intelligence world. Right. And I told him, he said, go do it. And I remember thinking at that point, I said, man, I'm good at breaking the law. And in my mind, my little 17-year-old mind, I'm like, I'm good at breaking the law. But to go back to the original question, I do not mean to go around my ankle to get to my elbow.
No. This is awesome, man. Again, you have the platform. This is amazing. Yeah. You're doing an amazing job. We really appreciate it, dude.
Groovy. So I remember thinking in my 17-year-old mind, I said, man, I'm smooth as a salamander, man. Like I was just really smelling my nose, and I was smelling myself. And of course I was young. I was 17. So
Right.
my thoughts hadn't matured and started to relate to my purpose. I wasn't really on that journey then.
Yeah.
So I didn't understand what was going on. But I remember saying to myself, hey, every moment that you spent locked up, every beating, everything that you've gone through, it means something because you're having these moments.
Yeah.
You're sitting with a captain at 17 years old telling a guy who's 40 years in the military how to get out of a sticky situation, and you told him how to break the law and get away with it. And I said, at the time, I took it to my head, and I got drunk that night because I was a 17-year-old sailor. I had a lot of crazy, did a lot of crazy 17-year-old sailing stuff in foreign countries. Yeah. But to get into that mind shift, so when the Navy actually turned me into, it wasn't a patriotic move. It wasn't me saying, I'm so patriotic, I want to go help the country.
Yeah.
It was more of, they said that you wouldn't even make it to get out of high school. They said you'd be doing life in prison.
Got it.
Go take that option because there's more.
Yeah.
You can go do more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was not just the think differently. It was, if the door's open, you better walk through it. You better have that engagement and go do it. So I started to really mature in my interpretation of what these moments were. And it started to identify that, oh, this is what this sounds like when the purpose is knocking. Right. When purpose knocks on your door, this is what she sounds like. She sounds like very uncomfortable, very feeling in the stomach, very, oh, I don't know, I don't have a safety net. It's that I'm standing on the edge, and then that voice is saying, hey, remember that word called faith? Evidence of things hoped for and the believers of things not seen. Remember that word? Remember they told you what faith was, and then there was a guy that allegedly walked on water because of this stuff called faith. That word and that application, it comes into fruition in those moments when you say to yourself, okay, well, this guy was in the middle of the ocean, and all praise be to Jesus Christ. But with respect, it was that guy they told you about in that book was walking on water. Then there's a guy that's kicking butt back Yang Luchan, and he's doing stuff with chi, and these guys are using something called belief. This faith stuff really works. And when you really embrace the totality of faith, like not to the point where I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I said sure.
I said sure.
Yeah, when you embrace the totality of it, not when you conceptualize it or read it in a book, not when you read it and say, okay, this guy used motivation and determination. No, when you are in a position in your life where you're standing on both of your feet and the only step forward is into the abyss, concrete ahead of you, and you are able to create your own mental castle, your own mental picture of a support system is going to tell you that it's going to be okay, even though you can't see it with your senses. You got to get out of your fields and into your senses. When that happens, that deployment of faith is what that book talks about. With the book, the Bible, no disrespect, of course I respect all books. The book talks about all you need is a bit of a mustard seed. Yeah. So when you're able to deploy it, that mustard seed grows into Jack's beanstalk. You hear me? Sure. Yeah. So I again, that's the answer. My apologies.
Sure. So then you take that, right? This happened to you, and this happened in your journey in the Navy, and then I'm saying, then you approach a point where that is what you're being forced to decide from that side of you to a new side, to evolve again, to open a new door. And I'm saying, how did you overcome? Because that's a big step that you already made. And I think a lot of people, once they make that step, it's very easy to remain comfortable, especially mentally, right? And you are forced to make a decision between one or the other. What is your advice to approaching that decision and overcoming and being willing to walk through a new door now when you're in your 30s and you're presented with because remember, this is now past Navy, past even agency, you're working for a company, right? And it's like, which do you do? Do you go back and are you doing what you're going to do for your country, or are you going to go through and do something for yourself? I think that's a big step that a lot of people don't approach correctly. And I'm just curious your thoughts on that.
Thank you. Because you also in saying that you expressed that I did go around on a tangent the last answer. My apologies.
No worries.
No, this is awesome, man.
It's a good tangent.
Groovy. So yeah, here we go. Here we go with this one. That I'd say at the age of 30, at that point, the sum of all my fears had been in two silos of existence in this physical form. Really courting a woman and doing something on my own.
Right.
I had the ability to manipulate a woman, but actually courting one is a different story. Like I was definitely at the time. So advice. Unfortunately, my advice is going to come from my life experience. And the reason why I say it's unfortunate because it has a large, copious amount of pain involved with it. I was forced to make a decision whether or not I was going to endure the type of situation that I had went through with the government, which was a painful experience and my last experience, which we're not going to get into, but we can, but not right now. It'd probably be a better discussion for another topic, but another day. But I was forced because I said, am I going to go back to that where my life is, it's definitely, I mean, it's valid. But at that time, in that moment, I realized that my life was definitely something that was disposable to the government. It could be replaced. And I had never put that into perspective. I had thought at that time in a 30-year-old mind that the energy that I put into people or into this system is definitely returning back to me. I hadn't learned the law of currency yet and the universal law of exchange. So at that point in time, I thought, okay, if I put this much energy into the government, the energy is going to come back. And then I realized, well, that's a very sophomoric and naive way to think. At the end of the day, if I die, they're going to have to replace me. I'm that replaceable. And it was during those moments, and I'm going to be honest, and that's all I can be. That's all I can give you. In those moments, what happened in the very raw form, I told you, I said, I still have, there's still statute of limitations. I went to the dark side for a year. I took everything that I had learned with the government, and I was so upset and so rebellious. And I'm going to answer your question though. I was so rebellious that I did everything from pimping to helping cartel. I was doing everything, the worst, because I wanted to feel. So at one point in time, I'm being serious. I mean, completely serious. I was the biggest bad guy's best secret weapon, and I was the worst nightmare to a lot of things for a year. Everything, and I'm not saying that. And here's the funny thing: don't think of it. I went to this sinister, dark place, and I grew out of bed, and I was doing cloak and dagger. No. There was a time and point where I was literally having GED classes inside of a Motel 6 with a group of street workers who I was providing, so at the time, protection for. I'm being funny on Will Ferrell's protection. But we were discussing how to, doing math, and we're doing social studies and studying for the GED, because I was like, yo, legit, this is what's going to happen. Y'all can do what y'all do, but you're going to be educated, but I'm going to make you better. That's what's going to happen at the end. So during all of that darkness, to get to your answer, at some point in time, I realized, okay, well, this is definitely not what I'm supposed to be doing. It feels good because I'm providing some kind of, but I'm just soiling my own. I'm experiencing my own vices, and this is not part of my journey. So at some point in time, I had to get on my knees in a meditation set, like literally. Really
I get you.
Myself, and I asked myself, "Hey, what are you supposed to be doing?" And I didn't have an answer. The answer came in the form of a phone call that I had with a friend who said, hey, you need to start your own thing. So what advice do I have to other people? Listen to your internal self. When you get to a point where you think that there's more, understand that there is more, and then get into an understanding of how to identify who you are and stop listening to what other people tell you are. Your name, from the first thing that you're told when you're born, all the way down to the part where you are doing what your parents told you to do about your education and your life purpose. Sure. That purpose is not your true purpose. So the only way to identify that, or the best way to start identifying that, is to meditate and ask your answers internally, because everything that you have inside has more answers than anything externally. Fact.
Yeah, I like what you said there, because you basically said you were lost until you were willing to find yourself within yourself, which is what meditation is going to come down to. And then you were willing to listen to the answer the universe provided, right? In your situation, it happened to be a phone call, right? It could be getting the job that maybe you weren't sure about. It could be a lot of things, right? But it's being open to listen. I think is very important, and I think that's really cool. And I don't think it's a bad thing to say, by the way, when you say that it involves pain. I think that's actually an important part of the lesson. I think that people want to be really true to themselves. Pain is a universal teacher for all of us. You know what I mean? And you know, the proverb goes, you know, you'll either experience the pain of discipline or you will experience the pain of regret. And so pain is just part of the process. I just think that people need to be open. And I think the key point you said there is you reached a point where you realized I need to ask myself, what do I want and what am I willing to do? And then you actually focused on that and let the answer come to you. And a lot of people are always waiting for the handout or something to be given to them. And it's like sometimes you have to find it yourself within yourself. So I think that's really cool. Mikey, what do you got, man?
I mean, I got chills talking about all that stuff because it just resonates so much. And I think you know, to add on to that lesson that you kind of just explained, Jason, and I think that is it. I talk about this a lot on the show, and Maddie, I talk about this too. Is like we can't say enough that like there's so many people, and especially just this day and age with social media and information. I think there's this very false concept that like you're inherently you're inherently really good at something and you just have to find that, right? And the reality is it's exactly what you just said. You've done multiple times in your life. You just have to learn, grow, and keep on experiencing new things. Dude, even during that dark time, right? Like you said, shit, man, you experienced some shit, right? And you experienced some shit that a lot of people haven't. But the product of that was your takeaway was, this is not what I want to experience much anymore, right?
Yeah.
And there's just this like what Maddie and both of you are saying is like people expect to just like chill and something just magically happens. Yes, you do need to take your time and don't make just like drastic decisions just to make decisions. But at the same time, you have to experience and learn and grow, or else you're not going to have those aha moments. And damn, dude, you have done that multiple times over. So more power to you in the sense that has helped you get to the place that you are currently now. And that's the only way, dude. I'm on the second go around. I had not read this book, and Matt told me about it, Mastery by Robert Greene. And there's so many
awesome book.
Forms of exactly what we're talking about, right? Like there's they use an example of one of the best passers in basketball. He was not naturally talented at basketball, but he would not freaking give up because he loved it that much. And he learned tons of brutal lessons and went through so much pain and heartache. But when he made it to the NBA, he was the best that ever existed because he put that much work into it, right? There's other people that find greatness or their mastery because they've been told they can't do that their whole life, right? Or their parents told them they have to do something else, and they're the rebellious one, right? There's just so many different ways to get there. And I think the point I'm just trying to say is all of the mastery and you finding yourself comes from experiences, failing, learning, and growing, and you've done a shit ton of that, man.
Yeah. I think we all are. I know this, right? Because words are very, very powerful. That's why we speak things into existence. But I don't think I know that we are all on that same journey, but I believe that most of us aren't in the element of the experience to take notes of it, to take notes of the wisdom that we should be extracting.
Right.
We get so caught up in the speed of life. We get caught up in the illusions, the distractions, the removal of our core focus,
right,
that we forget that these experiences are meant to take notes for our future decisions. Everything in the past that we can think about happens in the present, and so does the anticipation for our future.
Yep.
So we can control that entire thing if we are able to experience different. And that's what I love about the Web3 space, is that I think that people like us who understand this concept are going to be light bearers and champions of ensuring that people stay aware of how you experience doesn't have to be completely tied into one area.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Maddie, do you have anything to follow up before we kind of move into the Web3 world?
I want to get a little bit on, I know a couple people in chat have mentioned it, and I know you said you were going to get to it, Jason, the alchemy part.
Yes.
Take us through, because I don't know if that is the Web3 part, then by all means, but I didn't think it didn't sound like it was. I'd love to hear how we get to the alchemy part.
But before this, real quick, we do have someone in chat that said, best midlife crisis quote of all time, from pimpin' to helping cartels, midlife crisis show.
All in a day's work.
You have made it to the top of our list of one of the most quotable things that have ever come out of our show.
I can't wait till we make t-shirts with these quotes.
Dude, we're going to make midlife crisis.
I want one.
Shirts. 100% that is a quote that's going on our shirt. Oh, that's amazing. All right. So, hit us with the alchemy.
Alchemy. So, in tandem with my entire spiritual journey, both with martial arts and life, I've always been in tune in the spiritual world, or spiritual arts. 5 years ago, I found myself in Columbia, South Carolina, and I went on a vegan journey. Not because I wanted to. It wasn't my choice at all, actually. I walked into a restaurant, so happened to be a vegan restaurant. The owner, I didn't know this owner, but this Black beautiful goddess walked up to me in long locks, and that's why I felt I had died. I'm not being funny. I'm not trying to add any extra things that didn't happen, but true story. I'm sitting down, I'm look up, and this thing that I thought that came out of a movie looked me in my eyes and said, "Hey, so I've been waiting for you." And I'm not giving you hocus pocus. I'm telling you nothing that I'm saying is hyperbole. I'm giving you the truth. She looked me dead in my eyes and said, "Hey, so I've been waiting for you. You do something with tech. I know you don't even have to answer. So if you want to come back and talk about this tomorrow, I'm open to that." And I laugh like I'm laughing now because I'm like, this is right. Where are the cameras? This is good. This is fun.
I'm gonna get
long
punked.
Story, yeah. Long story short, I went there the next day, and this goddess, her name is this goddess took me on a journey to becoming a better version of myself. She introduced me to the arts of diet. What goes in is going to come out. What you put into your body is how you're going to think. She taught me about meditation. She taught me about my true self as an African American, or just as my roots. She taught me more of that I didn't know about. I didn't know a lot of the things about, lies my teacher told me, and the mistruths about, concepts of, who I am as a person and my history. And I say all that to say, for 7 months, I was a vegan, and I was eating nothing but, raw vegan. I wasn't a regular vegan. I was a raw vegan. We ran a restaurant called Utopia and Bliss. Still there. I'm an investor there. Best friends. But I've said all that to say, she taught me about me. And why is that important? Because as I started to understand who I was and the idea of the influences around me, she started to break down what the Bible was. She broke down, she didn't break down. She gave me the information for me to seek out and identify on my own the secrets of the universe, like the real secrets. And there are no secrets, but they're just things that aren't uncovered. And at that point in time, there were a lot of things that were covered to me that I chose to be blissfully ignorant to. She unveiled those things, or she helped me to unveil them on my own. Started reading more books about Kemet, or as people identify as, or I call it, Egypt, and the people there, and the arts of, of how we as humans evolve with just the capacity of our minds alone. And then how alchemy came into play was when I really got the understanding of the Bible, when I really was able to go into a mental journey and dig into, okay, so all of these things that have been taught to me in, church, I don't want to believe that they're bad. So there is a purpose, because if everything happens for a reason and all has value, like they keep saying, so what is the purpose of the Bible? And I started to really dig and identify every story, as it says in Deuteronomy, like these are allegories. I started to dig and understand the backstories to the stories in the Bible that we read about, where the real story, well, not real, where other stories were derived from the ancient times. And the alchemy came when I understood that my judgment, the way that I was thinking during that time of transformation for me, I was applying a judgment to it because I was taught to apply a judgment to it, because that's what the, that's what the religious silo taught me, is to, this is right and this is wrong. So you have to apply your judgment to it for it to align with the good and the bad of the world. And then I realized that if I took off that lens and I didn't apply any lens, and I was able to experience things as they were and then digest them afterwards, that is a superpower. That is something, that's the transmutation of thought. That's the transmutation of understanding that what I see and here's where Black Alchemy comes into play. What I see is only a certain limited amount of my senses telling my reality, or telling my consciousness of what it is. If I'm able to hold a discipline, or in martial arts, if I'm able to think through the pain, if I'm able to breathe, if I'm able to just exercise different sensory engines and muscles, then I can perceive it differently. And if I can perceive it differently, I can outthink it, and then I can manifest a reality that's outside of what it's in front of me. So Black Alchemy, people come and they were always asking me, hey, so got an impossible situation. So kid got kidnapped in Colombia, but at the same time, I can't call the cops because I'm on the wanted list over here, and what can you do? And I'm like, oh, all right, well, I don't see why you don't see this, because this is what you do. I'm able to, it's not because it's a necessary superpower, it's I'm able to see where people are limiting their perspective because of whatever preconceived notions they have about law, legality, whatever. And I said, oh, this is how you
either that, or they're in a traumatic situation and they're just stressed out, right?
Right. Yeah, well, I was
a variety of reasons, I'm sure.
Yeah, right. A variety of reasons. So that's where the alchemy comes from. I know that, I think, I don't know, and I'm saying the words, I can see it now. I don't know what your audience member was asking, but I hope that I touched both points of what they were asking.
No, I think that was a great explanation. Maddie, any thoughts? Before
I'm going to actually take it back to the book you just referenced, Mike, which is Mastery. I mean, it's interesting because Robert Greene talks about that, and he says the highest form of mastery is when you can become creative. And what's happening is that most people haven't gone through a task with enough iterations that they have to be focused on, the whole process of like unconscious, unskilled, conscious, unskilled, conscious, skilled, right? Most people at best get to conscious, skilled, right? And so when they approach you with a problem, it's because they can't think outside of just doing that one thing.
Yeah.
They're not able to be creative within that field and be able to think proverbially just outside of the box, right? Divergent thinking, if we're talking about psychology terms, right? And I think, Mike, to your point, they might be panicking, but for most people, how many times have they been put in that type of situation? They're just not prepared to think creatively and think outside of the box, right? Whereas the expert hostage negotiator, so you have, and I'm going to think of the guy's name that wrote the FBI negotiator that wrote the book.
What was that book called?
Shoot.
I know,
it's a great book. He writes a whole book on negotiations.
Yeah. And it's like, when he's in that scenario, he is able to think creatively because he's like been there, done that. He knows it. He can think outside of the box. Whereas most people, even just your average police officer, not to take anything away from him, but they just simply don't have enough reps doing that a professional FBI negotiator is going to have, right? And so his breadth of experience there is going to take him to another level. And I think that that's what's really happening here. When I'm hearing Black Alchemy, is you've put yourself in a position where you have enough reps, you've seen these things enough times. By the way, from both sides of it, because you self-admittedly played both sides of this, right? So you have a perspective that's unique that allows you to see where just other people wouldn't be able to see. And I think that that's a really cool lesson for a lot of people, because it doesn't mean that it's mystical and it's unattainable. It just means you're not there yet. And it's possible for somebody to get there. And that's, I think, a big thing, is that it's don't limit yourself.
And on top of that, just thinking about when you're talking, Maddie, but like, you probably inadvertently did this, but like when you went down, like you said, that dark year, like Matt said, how many people in your position can say, hey man, I did it for both sides, so I can see it from all angles. And that's just going to be, that again, has allowed you to be more creative than probably a majority of the people out there doing the same thing.
I'll say this to that. And everybody, everybody can touch this. There's two sides of us, and most of us as humans, we want to stay in our light selves. We like to talk about the positive attributes of ourselves. We don't want to talk about any of the lower vibration, our shadow selves. We don't want to touch that, because it's a lot of people have been taught that that's a bad part. Your demons are bad. You know, you have vices. But that experience taught me two things: that me and excess don't align, because I definitely will abuse excess of anything. Whether I can breathe too much oxygen, I'm that guy. And number two, if I try to contain or enslave my demons will always show me that they are boss. If I respect them, and if I'm able to not control them, but to have harmony with them, they will guide me down a path of supernatural abilities. And that's everybody. And it's not my demons. When I say that word, I don't even want to put that word demon. The things that some people would call shadow self, like my capacity to deceive if I need to, my capacity to manipulate if I see the vulnerability, or my capacity to see weaknesses, my capacity to do those things. If I try to contain them and say, I'm going to go, live this great life and try to, and I do that type of, of course, I'm not throwing any jokes, but if I try to force myself into a discipline of a certain positive ideology, then those demons will show up with brute force.
100%.
If I'm harmonious with them, and I'm able to identify, okay, well, look, this is how I can see it. When I'm sitting behind my desk and a client's asking me to think outside of whatever they're going through, it's because I'm allowing that shadow to talk back and say, well, how would you see it through a lens of exploitation?
Absolutely, dude. Yeah, and I mean, dude,
100%.
My version of that is my traumatic experience came from 30 plus years of learning and being told that if you just stay positive and are the nice guy, it'll all take care of itself. But let me tell you, it comes back and it's always there. And the more you avoid it, the worse it gets, right? And I mean, nail on the head, man, because after going through all that and getting out the other end, there's not a day that goes by that I think once a day, and this is like one of my things I constantly have to work on is it's okay to be angry. It's okay that bad things exist. It's be comfortable with it, embrace that, but still stay true to yourself, and you know what's right and you know what you want to do, right? But if and this is really what we can call the Disney effect, right? One of the disadvantages that Disney does with the youth of this world is think everything's a Disney movie, which is not, right? You need to be told sooner than later that there's really evil shit out there, and you need to be aware of that and comfortable with that as well. So, yeah, man, you hit the nail on the head, bro.
Yeah, feel exactly. That. Thank you for sharing that.
No, I like that. And I think, there's lots of ways to. John Maxwell says, he always talks, when he talks about books on leadership, he says it's really just influence, and influence is the goal, right? But influence can be used negatively, and we call that manipulation, or positively, and we call that leadership. But it's the same thing, right? And I think it's in your scenario, Jason, I think the background of martial arts, I think it's interesting. Most martial arts, but specifically, I would say the top ones, and if you have a high level instructor, there's a concept of balance, yin yang. There's a lot of different titles for it, but it ultimately comes down to, you got to have both, and they have to be in harmony, or you will find yourself off balance, man. And I think that's something that resonates. Yeah,
I appreciate that, and I can tell that you are a true practitioner, because I can see the way you selected your words to apply them in that message. I feel that, because that's what it is. The yin and yang. The concept of yin and yang is the premise of everything here in this world. It's Absolutely. The understanding that everything that you think is one thing it has its seed in the polarity of the opposite of it, or in its polarity. There is no light without darkness. There's no darkness without light. It can't exist. Even the way that we construct our thoughts about light is only exists because of darkness. It's because of the presence of darkness.
Right.
So It takes that. It takes us digging deep, and that's why I love this conversation. the more of this, I know you're helping a lot of people. I know that both of you are changing lives, and it feels, and I can feel it. My ancestors are telling me that both of you are doing your purpose right now.
Oh,
And
thanks, man.
awesome that we're
Thank
having
I
that.
appreciate
Yeah.
it. We
Thank
literally just get somebody in chat that said this is my favorite stream by far, and we've been doing this for years. So listen, you brought the hammer tonight. I knew when I talked to you it was gonna be a great combo. But no, what you just said there, gave me chills too. I really appreciate it, because I think speaking of yin and yang, Matt and I are yin and yang. The way that I am the more jovial, lighthearted, funny dude, and Matt is he brings the other side of just the. If you can see, he is very deep thinker and just asks some really awesome questions. And we just 30 plus year friendship being yin and yang, it's a pretty cool opportunity that not a lot of people have.
You have relationship flow.
Yes. Yes.
That's a whole different thing, man. That's a whole to be in a state of flow is one thing, but to have a relationship where both of you, both people in that relationship, whether it's a business, whatever it is, you're in the flow of your purpose. That right there is what magic's made out of, bro.
Yeah. Appreciate it, man. So
cool.
We have been having, believe it or not, we're already almost at an hour and 40 minutes. It seemed like 10. Definitely want to, because insane, incredible stories. So many. I want to cut this entire stream up into like 45 videos at this point. But I do think you have a wealth of knowledge when it comes to Web3 and security. And I would love to get into, maybe give us, 5 to 10 minutes of like you finding Web3. Maybe you can talk high level. I'm sure you can't talk into detail exactly like the things you do with Black Alchemy, but like overview of like kind of the services you provide. And then kind of let's transition into the Web3 world. And I'd love to get to the point where like, you can offer some tips of advice for the community of things you should be thinking about, things you shouldn't be doing, because we know this is and I think a lot of this horrible shit that happens in this space is, let's be honest, you boil it down to why a lot of bad shit happens, and it's egos and money, right? There's a shit ton of money to be made in this space, and it brings out a lot of shitty players when that happens. So that 100%. Was like a 4-part question. So let's start with the first part. Black Alchemy, how did you get into the Web3 space, that initial journey?
That's a beautiful question, because it starts with that same business partner I was telling you about with the other company.
Awesome.
He calls me one day. I'm on a spiritual journey. I'm driving down Florida, hitting different cities, and I'm just doing meditations and just on my journey. And this was a year ago. He calls me. He says, "Hey, I need a favor. I need you to write a report on this stuff called NFTs." I'm like, "Write a report for who?" He said, "For Bits and Digits. We're going to do it on another company too. We'll do it that way. And I just need you and your tone and your words, the way you write with your excitement, to write about NFTs." And I said, "I don't even know what NFTs are. Literally, I've heard the name." I said, "What is this? Some new crypto?" He's like, "Go do your research, figure it out, write a report, get back to me in 2 weeks." I'm like, "All right, no problem." So I start Googling and I start doing the YouTube, and I realized that NFT, as I'm looking at it from that lens, the first touch of it, I was like, this is in that voice. I even raised the author voice. "Oh, this is all a scam. This is a scam." Like, so a year ago I said, the first thing in my mind is like, okay, so tell my business partner, so I'm going to write this report, but this is all a scam, right? Because now they're talking about creating smart contracts tied to Ethereum about this image, but the image is really going to be used for money laundering, right? Because I had just done a deep darknet investigation for a client, and there was a lot of money laundering going on large scales. I was like, "Oh, that's how they're funneling." I got it. They just shut down all the crypto mixers. They're doing NFTs. And that's how I applied my whole idea of Web3 and NFTs. In that one moment, I judged it so bad that I kept a silo. There was a big window this big, but I only looked at it from the criminality standpoint. So watch this. No, watch this. He calls me 2 weeks later and he says, "Hey, man, I just need you to go ahead and just send me like $700. And I'm like, I'm not sending you for what? And he's like, I'm going to get us some NFTs. I don't want to just treat you and buy some because I know how you are about it. You'll throw them away. And I will, because I told you, we all have our shadows. And one of my things is, maybe I have some issues with understanding the value of material things.
Right.
So I said, I'm not sending that, man. Like, he's like, I said, what are you going to buy anyway? So he sends me a photo of this weird monkey. And I said, this is racist, man. You're going to send me something about a monkey and you want me to buy a monkey?
Jeez.
Like I'm pissed off. I'm like, we're friends, but I'm like, what are you trying to say right now? And he's like, man, this is the ape. This is an ape and we're going to buy 5 of them. And 2 of them are going to go to you. I'm like, you can cut me out of this. I don't know how I feel about this conversation.
Oh my gosh.
This is a true story. This is my true story. True story. So the mutant that you see on my profile, true story, was the one I was supposed to initially buy that he actually acquired for me. So
dude, that's crazy that it was a freaking
so
Bored Ape.
It was just 6 months ago when I realized, I said, oh, maybe I made one of the biggest mistakes in my life.
Right.
I probably need to start paying attention to this whole Web3 space.
Yeah.
But it was, to be honest, it was about 2 months after that I started to get calls that were dealing in the Web3 space, and from my, into Black Alchemy's phone, they were calling and saying things like my NFT was stolen. I've heard crypto being stolen, so yeah, we can work with you on that. We can do anything, but your NFT was stolen. Where'd you leave it? On the table? That was my like at the end of the day. So I started to research MetaMask wallets and really started to deep dive into the whole Web3 experience and doing what I do. Remember I told you about, how I look at things. It's like, okay, I'm not looking at all of it. So let me expand this. Let's unpack this and actually dig into each layer. Started to really delve into what I saw Web3 as, and I realized, oh shit, excuse me. Oh snap.
No, we're a mature YouTube channel.
Good, because I'm about to okay, great. So I said, oh snap. I said, yeah, I had to. Yeah, the girlfriend just brought it to me because she wants to keep me on my toes. I love it. I'm 41, she's 24, and she just threw that. Yeah, so I'm having
there you go, bro.
Situations.
41.
Oh yeah. but it's a headache. She's a headache. I promise.
Dude,
I love
you are dropping the most amazing quotes. You gave us
fantastic.
And oh yeah, with the Stella, and then followed it up by she's a headache.
But I love her though. I love her.
I'm dying here. This is amazing.
She's my future ex-wife. No, she's my future. She's my future thing. I love her.
This is the best. No, this is fantastic. Okay. So yeah, what were we saying? Now I don't even know where we're at this point.
What were we discussing?
Web3, you were starting to beautiful mind it. You were looking at it from an outside perspective. You were hacking the planet. Zero cool.
Yeah, zero cool. I was chilled. Polar bear's toenails. I was ready to go.
That's right.
But I realized, here's what I realized. I realized that I was in a space and that I was operating in a space that was moving gigantic amounts of money.
Yeah.
I started to realize that there were billions of dollars being traded or moving around every day. And if that wasn't the first indication of a red ocean, and a red ocean, if you're ever at sea and you see red in the ocean, there is blood there, and there's sharks. So whenever there's a red ocean, I knew the sharks were soon behind. And I said, okay, you know what's about to happen? Every one of these little kids and these people, and I call kids anybody that's under like 50 a kid, even though I'm only 40. But I said, each one of these people that are not technically savvy, each one of these people who have not been fighting the cyber war that I've been fighting for the last 25 years is going to get licked. Because there's no regulation. They have no FTC to save them. There's no, even in Web2 space, there's not a lot of regulations that can save you or governing bodies that can save you. But with the amount of money that was moving through, I saw that, companies were coming up claiming to be wallets and crypto wallets. I'm like, what? They don't even have code testing. MetaMask? Who's using that? I remember telling my business partner at the time, my best friend now, brother. But I said, there's people using this technology called MetaMask, and they don't even have a code test. What? They have no certification on their code. Who would want to put a $10,000 image on a wallet And he's like, everybody's doing it. But he said it with a German accent, of course. Like, brother, you know that everybody's doing. I'm doing a bad image.
And they're still doing
like,
it, right?
Yeah, right. But I didn't understand it because I was like, but brother, you and me, we're both cyber. Why would you even encourage that? He said, because that's where the market is. The market's so fresh that people don't know how to effectively evaluate technologies. They don't know what DYOR really means. They need you in this space. And I'm like, okay, there we go. That bullshit. That my ego's not gonna be scratched there. But I realized that there was an opportunity for people like me to be in this space to help, because the entire InfoSec community, once they wake up to Web3, they're going to be coming with their capes to help us, because not help us, to help the community, because the community is definitely in need of assistance.
Yeah.
And I guess we can talk about Web3 when you're ready.
Oh man, no, that's a great, Matt. Anything to follow that up other than we just got like 2 or 3 more fantastic quotes?
Yeah. No, man, I'm ready. I want to hear the tips and tricks. I want to know what we need to know.
So,
in fact, I'm going to go get a drink myself. Hold on one second.
There we go. There we go.
You can go. We can continue the conversation. So I think yeah, that's it. So like, let's talk about well, I'll give you at the end to just kind of talk about what you do, but let's go down the Web3 rabbit hole. So you're seeing, and we all know this, right? Like, this is, dude, I got scammed from a fake OpenSea help desk agent, right? You know, me going into OpenSea's Discord, which is their legit Discord, and sure enough, you know, dude's just waiting for an idiot like me that doesn't know how to handle his first MetaMask transaction ever, and that it takes time to go up to the blockchain. Son of a bitch was sending me a link in two seconds, and I clicked on the link and game over, right? Fortunately, I am, you know, unfortunately, there are a lot of people that spend money they probably shouldn't have in this space. I was dealing with money that was all profits, and I had not spent a lot of my personal money. And I learned, right? I learned a hard lesson. So let's go down that road. You already, I think we already know there's tons of opportunity for security. A lot of shit's shady. Discord shady. I'm sure MetaMask is still shady. OpenSea is shady. Like, all of these tools that we're using. As a beginner in this space, we have a wide range of people in our community. We have people that have been in for a couple years, but we still have a lot of new people because we do kind of this like open conversation, educational type format, right? Mm-hmm. So let's say top 3 to 5 things being in Web3 that we seriously should be thinking about that we're probably not thinking about. And
user, a strategist, what level?
I would say our community is they're not hardcore investors, but they enjoy the space, and they are in it for more of the community and the artwork and obviously making some money, but they're spending all day on Twitter and Discord.
Okay, so there we go. You ready? Here we go. First and foremost, if you don't know how to do your own research, begin to understand that you do not know how to do your own research, and learn to do your own research effectively. Proper, effective do your own research does not include listening to a Twitter space or an influencer tell you about a tick or an alpha. Listening to different slangs and thinking that your lingo interpretation is going to translate into some proper alpha is not doing your own research.
Right.
Doing your own research requires this. Understanding that everything that you see on a Twitter space, Instagram, or TikTok feed, reel, or post is something manufactured by somebody else to influence you to do or make a decision to buy into their project.
Yeah.
So if you understand it from that perspective, then you understand that the necessity or the requirement for you to dig past what that person is posting and look into that person is an imperative.
Yeah.
So, first one, your question was, what are some things I should do better?
Do your own research.
Research better. And doing your own research better is, go ahead.
No. I'm just saying, please expand on what do your own research means, because I feel like people toss this term out. They say do your own research, but they don't tell you what good do your own research is. So I love this. Like, continue to expand on it if you can.
Yeah, this is the time where anybody in your community that wants to learn about NFTs should probably take their pins out, because we're about to drop some knowledge here.
I love it.
All right. So doing your own research requires you to understand that we are moving in a Web3. So we're in a Web3 unregulated, almost wild, wild west environment.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people taking advantage of the lack of regulation needed to establish a proper project. So what does that mean? It's important for you to create a rating or a grading system internal to yourself that is going to make you feel comfortable about dealing with different projects. I'm going to talk about what works for me. And if anybody wants to take that on their journey, good for them. Here we go. Number one, if the company is not doxxed or if the project is not doxxed, I'm not dealing with it. I don't care about, okay, well, we're anonymous. I don't care. If you want to charge more than 50 cents for an ETH, or if you're making a big project and you have this community, then I need to know at least that the security engineer or the security advisor or the CEO or the CFO, the person handling the purse strings, is doxxed. I need to know that. And that makes sense because for me, it's telling me that the project is taking so much care to ensure that there is somebody liable in the event that a rug is pulled or manipulation is played, that I don't have to call the SEC and help them forensically deduce any investigation, because nobody's doxxed. Right. It removes the layer of reliance, or a level. It removes a layer of weakness and risk to my profile that helps me to make better decisions, make better informed decisions. Number two, doing your own research includes understanding how much standing that project has in the legacy world. What am I saying? All right. So if I'm going to invest in $25,000 into a deeds or a dead fellow or whatever, and they're telling me all this stuff on their roadmap, and we're going to get to roadmaps in a second. They're telling me all this stuff on their roadmap, how they project that their new game is going to revolutionize this, and mental health is going to be that, and now pigs no longer have to be used as bacon. They have this new thing, whatever this promises they're creating.
Right.
If they're so innovative and so life-changing, I hope you're paying attention, then they should have a patent or a trademark. So I should be able to go to USPTO and check out and see if Deadfellas has a trademark like Bored Ape Yacht Club has about 10,000. No, realistically, they have about 1,000. That gives me a good determination of how serious they are about the maturity of their company. So number two is I'm going to look at USPTO. I'm going to look at their business license standing. I'm going to find out where they're hosted, and I'm going to figure out the legitimacy of the company or the brand that they're trying to tell me is worth 5 ETH. Does that make sense?
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. So number three, the people that are doxxed, because of course I told you that I'm not going to invest unless somebody's doxxed, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to go and do proper open source intelligence gathering on each one of those people. I'm going to identify who they are. I'm going to figure out who they're interacting with. And this is me personally. Yeah. And this is, for your audience, I'm going to figure out, number one, does the founder or any of this community in this space interact with any of the bad listers that I have, right? I have the rug pullers or, the people that are, hustling and scamming. If they, because we're going to get about scamming, because scamming is a good determining factor in the research, but scam is not a good or bad thing. It's just like the word hacking. Yeah. So I'm going to do my research on the people. Then what's most important for me is I'm going to understand whether or not the roadmap has any real tangible artifacts that can show me that this roadmap is not just a sophomore pitch deck. It is an actual roadmap that has pavement that is laid in articles of evidence that show me that the projections are going to be made by action, not by a Twitter space.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, to add on to that, it's something that, it's even more dumbed down than what you're saying. But we have to say this to everybody, and it's just mind blowing to me. Yeah. If you have a project that says, we're going to create the best merch in the world, one of your founders better own a fucking merch company or have a designer brand in their back pocket that they have helped built, right? Don't tell me that you're going to, or if you're going to make a game, you either be better collaborating with one of the best dev game companies out there, or have game devs on your team. Like, it's such a simple concept, but people are like, oh, it's okay. They're going to make a game. They'll figure it out because if they get money, it'll be okay. Which, by the way, people, these royalties, they're not going to be here forever. And that business model ain't gonna last.
and on top of that, listen, right, there's a hustle. It's right how it's how magic works, right? You have to keep the attention somewhere so they don't pay attention in another place, right?
Right.
If every answer is a new thing you need to look at that's sparkly just to create more FOMO, it's a scam. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like, ooh, I don't know if they're going to do this. Oh, but wait, if you buy two of them, this will happen. Or if you do this now, this will. A lot of that is just a hustle, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know those street con artists that would go and they would ask for change with a $5 bill and end up with like $100. You know what I mean? It's all that. It's just manipulation of keeping people spinning, spinning, and people have gotten very good at doing that with Twitter, Discord, whatever social media, you know what I mean? They've gotten very good at doing that and getting people. Here's the thing. You don't need everybody to, but if you have a Discord with 15,000 people, you really only need about 3,000 or 4,000 of them to fall for it. And you can make a tremendous amount of money and then disappear.
Yeah.
And I think that that's what people need to understand. It's like, yes, you might have been smart enough to catch it, but is everybody? There's a bell curve here. And they're playing their odds, and right now they're winning, and so it's a hustle. It's Vegas does the exact same thing. There's a reason you can't walk through a casino and not hear somebody winning a slot machine somewhere. You know what I mean? It's psychological. You have to have that feeling of like, crap, that could have been me. I'm gonna miss out, and I just think that a lot of people have to take a second and calm down and say, what's really happening here? And I that's why I love what's happening, what you're sharing here, because it's like, these are real steps you can, as you breathe, do these things, and you'll create a lot more clarity before you make an emotional decision.
Right.
I think, if I may jump on the back of that, what you were touching on is really important, I think, for your audience to understand. There is a psychology to scams. There's a psychology to marketing. There's a psychology to influencing people to do things that they don't want to traditionally want to do. And that psychology is just like in coding, or just like in everything that we do in life. That psychology has been compartmentalized, compacted, and made into a module that can be digested by just about anybody who wants to learn it, right? It's not like you have to get a 5-year degree, a 4-year degree, my bad. So a 4-year degree to go learn a certain, trade or subject matter. You can condense the art of exploitation, especially in the scam sense, in about a week and become a master at it.
Yeah.
People are more susceptible. They're more susceptible to exploitation than they are to being fortified. Whew.
Yeah. Dude, write that one down.
Let me get my pen.
That's another. I mean, dude, Pixelmon, great example. I know. I know kind of intimate story behind it. This dude's 20 years old, made $70 million off of creating. I think he spent $5,000 to $6,000 on Fiverr to create his assets. And I mean, it's
Pixelmon has done. Yeah. I didn't know it was 70 million.
Oh yeah, dude. They made $70 million because they were at the height of the height, and their Dutch auction sold out at 3 ETH.
Are you serious?
Yeah. 3 ETH, man.
Oof. 3 ETH it sold out at when ETH was
ETH was 4,000, not
bucks.
1,300.
Oh my god! Yes,
dude,
it says
insane.
70
it's
million.
Insane. Yeah, dude, it's insane. So, but I would say, I would just kind of like add on to what you're saying too is absolutely, but there is also this I actually, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Now, I feel like it's a little less, it's easy to get scammed. It's not as easy for the scam artists in this environment because that hype and this craze is gone, right? And a lot of, like a Pixelmon, for instance, or Hate Beast. That's how I actually got my start. I was original mod for Hate Beast. that FOMO and that just how crazy hyper frenzy that you got going on makes you make stupid decisions.
For sure.
Yeah, it's the same social engineering tactic that we use as hackers and as, you know, my former lifestyle, when we're engineering people for information or engineering them for a response to get them to distracted or into a space where they're easily exploited.
Yeah.
Encouraging people to move faster than their capacity to process.
Interesting.
Most people don't know their limitations on processing information. Most people don't know the rate at which they interpret information. Yep. Most people are not aware of that.
Yep.
Most people think that if you're speaking fast, they have to interpret what you're saying, so they start to think fast. But just because they're speaking fast doesn't mean they're saying anything. And the way that people see that is a little bit different. I did it on purpose.
No. Yeah, that's a good way to explain what you're saying.
So when you see that in the scale where you can feel it, you can see it coming because you know the tactic, you know the technique, you know the protocol of which is being used to exploit you, you're able to look out for it. But your people that are new, that are people that are coming into this space who have been teachers or professors or, you know, not in the space of security or any aspect of technology that may cause them to be exploited, are sitting ducks until they listen to this, you know, to your podcast and watch your videos. This is going to educate and equip them.
Right.
If they're, and it's a simple thing to adapt into your life pattern. It's like, okay, if somebody's telling me to do something, first and foremost, I need to understand that first and foremost, nobody tells me to do anything. And I know that sounds egotistical or too, it could be abrasive, but it's more of a stand your ground. Understand that your center is more important than the center that people are trying to impose upon you.
Right.
Say that one more time. Your center is much more important.
Mm-hmm.
Your thoughts, your peace, your action, your harmony with yourself, your financial status is much more valuable to you than other people are trying to tell you theirs is.
Yeah.
If somebody's trying to tell you to do something, they're trying to say that this is what you need to do, and they're creating a us-them a scenario where if you don't participate, then you are less than. Understand that this is the beginning formula of a manipulation.
Mm-hmm.
The con that you see in the streets, the same con like you were speaking to, you were saying, you were expressing that the con that you see in the streets is something that most people just can't identify. You can't identify if it's coming left or right. You don't know if somebody's working you or not because you're paying too much attention to what the distractions they're putting in front of you. If you understand yourself, it's kind of hard to fall into that prey of being forced to make a decision that's not yours.
Yeah.
And I think what I love what you just said there. First of all, by the way, good little martial arts analogy about staying in your center. But a lot of the time, if you can just take a moment and just take, I love it, the 3-second rule. Just wait 3 seconds before you respond, and you'll be amazed. Because when you give yourself 3 full seconds, people tend to mirror. And when you talk fast, I feel like I have to respond fast. No, I don't have to respond fast at all. Just take a second. Does this make sense? What's happening here? What are they actually asking me to do? Does this, is this something that I'm willing to do? Can I even afford to do this? When somebody starts trying to convince you to borrow money from a friend or a family member so you can take advantage of this opportunity, no good opportunity comes from there. You know what I'm saying? It's like, if you just take 3 seconds and say, would I do this in any situation? Would I ask my family member to do this? You know what I mean? You'll find a lot of the answers. I mean, again, it's a lot to unpack the psychology. And by the way, I think it was, Never Split the Difference is the name of that book. It just came to me, the negotiation book.
Yes, that is it.
But it's a fantastic, when he walks through a lot of these techniques, but it's just, there's a hustle in sales, and I know I teach sales. You know what I mean? I know, there's a methodology to kind of logic trap people into this sense of buying. And that's why, essentially that's what closing is, right? Good closers are just, you're finding these kind of psychological hacks to get people to buy now. But just take 3 or 4 seconds. And if a person is not willing to wait a little bit, that's an immediate red flag.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that is that would be my, like, if I was just giving something simple, if you're not sure, pause.
Yep.
And if they don't like your pause, that's probably all you need to know. So
dude, it's so well put, Maddie, because like one of the like we said, Maddie and I have known each other since the 4th grade. You know, obviously you grow up life, you're not as, I mean, Maddie and I were at each other's doors every day. And since the pandemic, we literally, I think there's been maybe 10 days max that we haven't talked on the phone or communicated on a daily basis. And that is probably, I would say, the number one thing that I have picked up from you, Maddie, is just you are very deliberate to sit and just process. If I tell you something or I think we should do something this way, you're very, very methodical about making sure that you take the time to process yourself. You're one of the very rare people where I will say a paragraph to you and you say, hold on, please repeat that because I want to understand exactly what you're saying. And like that is a prime example of, and I don't know where that, I mean, I think this is our society and just that everything's so 24/7 at this point. There's also just like insecurity could be part of it too. Like people just don't like silence and you feel like you need to have an answer to that, right? But dude, that skill alone can really change a lot of things when it comes to the stuff that we're talking about. What are your thoughts there, Jason?
100%. No, 100%. I think that I don't think I fully agree with that. It's if you're not aware of where you are, what your goals are, where you want to go, that somebody has the capacity to teach you or tell you that. They have that capacity to do that. That's why it's important that we establish these things in our lives ourselves. We have to establish in scams or in any technological space where money or influence can be involved, you have to go in knowing what you want, because if you don't, you will be told.
Yeah.
You know, and just to your point about embracing the uncomfortable, you're right. This society that we live in today, it's almost deafening. Like it's almost like the worst thing you can go through for certain people, to experience silence, to experience a break from the script of communication, to experience a uncomfortable, interaction with somebody else. And that's where you can really start to identify who you are, by touching those silences. Play the pause. What they say in music is that play the pause. It's okay.
Yeah.
We'll go through it. Just, take your time, breathe it out. 3-second rule. I love that one.
Yeah. For
sure. And what was the name of that book again?
Never Split the Difference.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, sure. It's a great book.
Great book.
I needed to write that one down.
Yeah. All right, so.
And you get it, by the way, to respond to that, you get it, by the way, listen to some of the best orators out there. You know what I mean? Listen to Morgan Freeman say anything. It's not fast. You know what I mean? But we love it. We hear his voice and you're compelled to listen.
Yeah.
He just sucks you in. You know what I mean?
That guy's got some serious shit to say.
Right? James Earl Jones, same way. And it's not just the deep baritone bass, because he has that too. But I'm saying he has a cadence.
Yeah.
And he's not afraid to take a moment and let silence seep in so people can hit an emotion and then continue. It's really good. It's cool to see people who are masters at it.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's one thing that we incorporate into this show as well, too, is you'll notice Maddie and I do that. Is I think another benefit of taking your time is, I hope that the feeling that you get is if you say something to me, Jason, and I actually take that extra second and you see my head or I'm looking up and like you can tell I'm processing a thought, that is just so much more engaging, and it makes that person that you're talking to feel thankful that you're really, see, the son of a bitch is just walking away from me on purpose.
No. He said in chat. He too much Stella, too much
I thought he was doing one of his acting gigs and just totally ghosted me.
He literally put in chat, he was like, I need to go to the bathroom. And I was like, I got you, man. Just go ahead and do it.
I thought he was totally doing his like
That's
show
perfect.
by example.
Mike thinks he's getting hacked right now.
I thought
he's
he just hacked me with what I was trying to say.
Nah, keep going though, man. Keep going.
No. But what I was saying is like when you can tell that someone is invested in what you're saying and trying to process it and then give you a genuine answer, it just makes that interaction more genuine. What is this show about? Being genuine, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
But it's,
all right, my apologies.
dude,
Thank you. I thought you said you had my back.
Jason,
I had you. I covered you when you left. I took care of it.
Jason, you missed it, bro. You missed it because
Mike thought you were actually performing one of the social hacks on him by walking away.
Dude, you're so,
that's hilarity. That is hilarity.
You're so good. You totally, when you got up, you're so good because I was talking about like, dude, me processing it and taking some time so you can genuinely see that I'm trying to respond. And as I said that, you got up and I literally said, you son of a bitch, you're doing this on purpose just to prove a point. And I was like, you're acting all over again, which by the way, I do have to go to the bathroom, so I'm going to let Maddie to the next one.
That's how that works.
Exactly. That is good stuff, man. So Jason, you were going through some tips and tricks for people, and you talked about make sure that somebody is doxxed, right?
Yeah.
Does the project have standing? And you were talking about whether it be a patent or a trademark or something. Is there something that shows a vested interest? And then you were talking about doing background checks on the people who are doxxed to make sure that they're not in association or linked with anything that might be nefarious. What would you say? Okay, so if we go through that process, did you have any others?
Oh yeah, I have a multitude of others, but I don't think we have the time to go. I mean, okay, for this show,
any that just pop out that you think are maybe big ones that are just kind of macro level things?
Well, if we're talking specifically at the DYOR, the do your own research level, absolutely. Those are the main things. Okay. You know, learning how to do your own research is important. Learning how to do your own research in the capacity to identify scams or tricksters or frauds, that's really important. And the way you do that is thinking outside the box and looking into the standing. Here's a mindset trick or a mind hack that I give people for do your own research in the NFT space.
Perfect. So here's a question I want to ask you specifically because of your expertise and your background. I have noticed, and a lot of people in chat will recognize this as well, and Mike experienced this, is that when you get scammed in this space, when you publicly announce it, whether it be a tweet, oh, I just lost everything in my wallet, or whether it be you go to, I'm trying to think, Ledger, right, with their cold storage. You go to Ledger and you try to send a help message to them saying, hey, I think something's wrong with my wallet. Or in Mike's situation, he went to OpenSea. Hey, well, here's what happened, right? The second you admit that something happened, the predators will, it's like you're the wounded gazelle at that point, right? And so all of the predators send to attack. And I'm shocked when you see the people, when they send a tweet, the number of comments of people, oh, I can help you with this, or oh yeah, send me a message. I'm an ethical hacker. Then and it's like a lot of the actual really bad things that happen because something small happened to somebody. They talked about it, and then they put essentially a target on their back, right?
Absolutely.
What should people do when something happens? How do they get to somebody that they can trust? What is the answer in that situation? I'd love to hear your answer on that.
Great question.
Wow, that's a very good question. I even lost my thought because I was saying, how do I promote myself? So here we go.
Time.
Take a pause. You're allowed to do that.
Silence, man. We love it here at Midlife.
So here's a very honest answer. The first thing you should do when you are experiencing any kind of cyber hack, or if you've experienced any kind of exposure, is to take a break. Slow down. Don't post. Don't tell everybody, because remember, at that point in time, you are identifying who knows about the incident and who doesn't. And that bit of information can tell you or save you a lot of money in the future. For real, in the future. So Identifying a good cybersecurity practitioner is a very unique practice. And unfortunately, it requires skill. This is a fact. I'd say about 80% of my clients, celebrities, politicians, NFT founders, everybody that we deal with, high net worth individuals, a vast majority of them, it's become like I wait for it in every onboarding conversation when somebody, we take them on as a client or put them under a retainer agreement. I'm waiting for them to say it. We went through like 3 people before we got to you. 100% of the time, I get that. Yeah. Most people have been scammed by other security practitioners that tell them or use have the right je ne sais quoi. They can, finesse their way into words and vernaculars that can make them feel comfortable because it's a very unique space. And unfortunately, most of our clients don't find us until their 3rd or 4th rip.
Yeah.
So how do we prevent that? Unfortunately, doing your own research is the only way that you're going to be able to really identify. Look at how much information that person or that entity or that brand emits, that you can deduce, that you can review how many insights, how many likes, how many retweets are they getting how many interactions are they getting on their entire social profile.
Yeah.
I'm talking about their business. Like, if there's 100 tweets or 1,000 tweets, or if there's 1 million followers in a company that's a cybersecurity, that they're bought. So you want to look at their influence. You want to look at their reach. Are they saying things that they want you to see that you can understand? Let me break that back. Let me slow that down one more time. This is really important. If we are in a space where everything is about image, everything is about presentation, everything is about what you can see based off of my avatar and my presentation, understand everything that you see about them should be scripted. It should be curated. It should be created for your digestion. A social media platform from a security engineer should have relevant content that tells you not only do they know their stuff, not only are they engaging with the community where people are actually interacting with their posts, that they're actually doing original content, but they have a brand recognition that is seen beyond just, the last 2 years. They've been around for 20 years. They've been doing this building and creating and fostering a brand, not somebody that you can't find in a traditional Web2 space. Yeah. I'm not saying directly that anybody in the Web3 space that doesn't have a traditional Web2 background is invalid. I'm telling you, the community of interest, that this is the measures that I would leverage to evaluate the effectiveness and the validity of a security expert.
So let me ask you this question quick then. Is it a valid answer from a security expert like yourself to say, well, I have a little information about me on the internet because I am a securities person and I know, the threat there is to being online? Or is that bullshit?
So I will say this. I remember the days. Watch this. I remember the days when it was so serious that the online profile that I presented was so important that a loss of my life was there. I remember those days, and that was back on a reservation for the government.
Right. Sure.
People do now in today's world do throw up threats, and they do, like, there are valid threats against a lot of security researchers because they're either new security researchers and they're just understanding the necessity for OPSEC, or they're just regular people who just don't want to have their life interfered with.
Right.
I'm going to say this. Any researcher or any security engineer that says that their online presentation and profile is limited due to their OPSEC or their need for privacy, but they cannot qualify that absence of presence with other citable references like news articles, being cited in proper investigation, having proper blogs under a pseudonym, because you don't have to put your name out there to get proper content posted.
Yeah.
If you're Mr. 200 followers or Mr. 10,000 followers that are synthetic, and you really can't show me what do you have? Your website? Okay, that's cool, but I need to feel, what does your BBB say?
Right.
Did you think about BBB? What's your LinkedIn say? Oh, you don't have a LinkedIn.
Right.
Okay, well, what other information? This is the reason why, just to give you a bit of texture and content, or reasoning rather, this is why I do the content that I do. I make these grainy, silly little security videos on my GoPro that are not production grade to show people that, look, I can wake up at 5 in the morning, post on my other channel about health and fitness and being positive, and then by 7 o'clock, have a 1-minute stream about something so valuable but so silly that you can digest it because it's that simple for me. Watch what will happen if you pay, or watch what happens if you're my client. It's that kind of messaging that may not be direct. I didn't mean to go on a tangent though.
No. That's great. I think that's a great response, and people need to hear that.
Yeah.
And I would say, here's, I guess, the more poignant question. If somebody is scammed, if somebody is looking for somebody, and they're in this space, and let's also be real, they're in this space, and let's say the average person in this space maybe has 1 or 2 ETH in their whole wallet. That's what they're working with, right? You're talking about, you're dealing with celebrity clients, politicians. These are high net worth individuals. Is the average person 1 or 2 ETH that gets scammed? But maybe they did have something. Maybe they were able to get Nizuki at Mint or something like that, or maybe they got a mutant or something. And so what they lost might be valuable, but they don't have a lot of money per se, liquid assets. Is Black Alchemy Solutions a place they can go to? Is this a place what I'm trying to say is, it's like, are you one of the answers? Is what you guys do one of the answers for that?
100%. 100%. While I talk about, I mentioned that a percentage of my clientele are of a certain class or of a certain exposure. I'd say a vast majority of the work that we do comes in from the people who don't know who else to call. They don't know where to go. We are resource brokers. And before we are a solutionist or a privacy boutique, we broker trust. That's the first thing that we do. So even if you're looking for a solution, a pivot into somebody that you can trust is always what's going to happen. I like to consider all of us to be the Meet Joe Blacks. That Brad Pitt sitting behind the guy. You can trust us. We may be death, but we're not coming for your death. But we're going to try. We're going to give you everything that you need to know because it's what we do. This is why we're here.
Right.
Great movie reference, by the way.
That is a great
Love
movie,
that movie. Pretty sure most people listening have not seen that movie. I'm the movie buff here. But fantastic.
He's a huge movie buff. And okay,
oh, dude.
So
how good was Anthony Hopkins in that? His speech on his birthday, nailed it.
That's a great.
Chills.
It's a great.
Sorry, go ahead. Sorry, Mike.
Watching that movie, and this may sound a bit cliche, but watching that movie helped redefine what I thought a man should be. Like it really established, like, wow.
Right?
I'm not saying that having these things, no, I was not the materialistic aspect, but just the role that he played, it was just a beautiful piece of work.
Now I gotta go watch it again.
Awesome.
I remember
Dude,
being
the cafe scene nailed it. Anyway.
Yeah.
Good.
We can talk hours about that.
So I think I want to start. I think we couple more. I want to start. We're like 2.5 hours, and you're gonna. You're gonna.
Yeah, I have to go soon. Actually,
you have unlimited invitations back on the show. This has been phenomenal. People are loving it in chat. I think one thing I wanted to add, because I think people are interested in this. Because Matt even mentioned this, right? We had this when I tweeted today that you were coming on talking security. There was literally 4 comments about been scammed. This dude I can trust. And then you go to the profile and they have 0 followers and are following 10 people, right? Is it a reality that you can get your Bored Ape back? If you know the right people, if your Bored Ape gets stolen,
great question,
by a scam artist, and you, as the security expert that is legit, says, I can get that back for you, how real is that?
It would take a very unique, very specialized crisis negotiator, hacker / Web3 engineer to be able to facilitate that kind of retrieval. It is not a run-of-the-mill operation because what most people don't understand is the way that you would get it back has nothing to do with hacking. It's more of understanding your ability to have soft skills and leverage.
Yes.
So that's what the difference between a security expert and a cyber crisis manager would do.
Interesting.
A security expert helps you to negotiate the problem. They talk about the pain. They can hold the hand with you for the pain. A crisis management institute or a cyber crisis management institute finds solutions. So to answer your question more directly, is it viable? Yes, but it have to come from a source. Is it likely? No.
Yeah.
There are going to be more people that talk to people that say they can get their board ape back than there are people like us that can help provide a resolve that is a lot more viable or likely than anybody else.
Yeah, or someone that has a lot of money and leverage like Seth Green, who got his board ape back.
Yeah, and that's all I can say about that case.
Exactly. So with that being said, this is how we like to do this, sort of wrapping up. Again, man, amazing conversation. We actually lied. We have 2 questions for you still.
Okay.
They're very easy questions. Don't stress out. But before we ask those kind of wrapping up questions, I want to give you a minute or two to the floor. Kind of just give us the elevator pitch on Black Alchemy, and maybe, obviously, since our chat is not filled with politicians and celebrities, how can Black Alchemy, or what they should look out? Is it your TikTok? Should they pay attention to the Twitter? Are they able to reach you in different ways if they want to have a conversation with you? Just kind of that 1 to 2 minute elevator pitch.
Not a problem. Thank you for that opportunity. So first and foremost, Black Alchemy Solutions Group is the answer to all of your crisis problems in the privacy and cyber domains. Any problem that you have where you think people may think you're crazy, or you don't need to call the law enforcement, or you think nobody's going to listen, but you know you have a situation where it happened on an electronic medium, we are not only your answer, but we are your solution. Number 2, whether or not you are an individual that is just, living their lives, having a wonderful time in this wonderful, magnificent situation we call experience, or you're a person that has decided to live yourself in front of a camera in limelight, we take in and provide the most unique service. All of our services are bespoke. One specific thing that we offer is OSINT scrubbing, which is open source intelligence. So we take your digital footprint online and we make you, for all intents and purposes, unhackable. That is a strong statement, and that's a big target, but we do understand the totality of that statement. But yes, we handle cases from whether or not you've been breached or hacked. If you have a company that has been exploited or going through any kind of ransomware, or you being blackmailed, we handle all cases that you don't want. You call us before you call your lawyer, and you call us way before you call the cops.
All right. I think that's a pretty solid pitch.
Love
and
it.
The one thing I don't want to miss, though, is for people in this chat that might just be, they're into the NFT space. They're interested in your knowledge and just getting more in tune with being cognizant about security. Can Black Alchemy help in that way? Is there any way that they can interact with you?
Absolutely. So our Twitter is BLACKALCHEMYSO2. So Black Alchemy.
That's been on screen for 2 hours and 27 minutes. I got you covered.
And then they can reach it. If you really have a situation, or if you need to reach out to me directly, my name is Jason Tate. I'm the owner, but my signal is on our Twitter profile. Do not reach me in regular text. Never send me a DM about a case or a situation or a scenario, because in the event that you actually need my services or my company's services and you've undergone some kind of cyber exploitation, the likelihood of somebody still being there, persistent reviewing what's going on and what communications you're saying is likely. So sending me a message on Signal is highly preferred.
And what is Signal for people that don't know what it is?
Signal is a secure messaging application that is actually one of the best end-to-end encrypted communication tools to use in a situation where you want to maintain privacy.
Yeah.
I don't like WhatsApp. I prefer Signal more than anything.
Yeah, and I knew, and just a little quick side story, I knew Jason was the real deal when I reached out to him via Twitter after I heard him talk in space, and he got back to me relatively quick, which I was impressed with. And I said, "Hey man, how do we chat? You want to do this Discord? Can I give you a call on the cell phone?" And he goes, "Oh no, you ain't sending me any messages. I got a Signal number on my profile. You should download that app and you can call me through Signal." And I was like, all right, this guy is not fucking around. So I was like, hey, he's definitely I was already sold once you gave me that answer. I was like, now I need to convince him to come on our show. So yeah, it's fantastic, man. I appreciate it. I think that's very helpful for communities. It's also good to know, like, I mean, even with us, right? Like, we have attracted our hardcore community because we're one of the few really genuine people in the space. And for you, you're extremely genuine. You were vulnerable by telling us all your stories, and you're an expert in security, and that's another amazing person to know in a space like this. So we really, really appreciate what you said. And with that being said, we got two final questions. First one, do you have any questions for us? Because we just peppered you with questions for, believe it or not, we've been talking for 2.5 hours now.
Yeah. So we haven't. This is a wonderful experience. This has been a wonderful time shared. Do I have any questions for you?
And if you don't have any, it's no big deal.
I don't. Not right now.
That's
you know
fine.
why?
That's totally fine.
I'm not intrigued. No, not that. And I don't even feel compelled, like I need to tell you this, but I'm going to share it anyway with you and your community. I did my research before I got on the phone with you. And I like to know who I'm engaging with. And also, I know that this is the beginning of a very long-standing relationship. So any questions that we have, we'll definitely be able to take them later. And what was the second question?
I appreciate it. And the second question is, I know you've been part of Twitter Spaces. You've seen AMAs that you might have been a part of other AMAs. We love to kind of get your thoughts on how do you think the Midlife Crisis show and experience was compared to what you've experienced or been a part of in the Web3 space.
For sure. You know, positive, 100% reinforcing positive vibrations for what I'm about to say and respect for everything. I believe that your platform and what's going on here is very constructive. It's more geared toward providing proper content to a group of a community that is seeking out insights, and it's actually getting that value in this space. I like the organization. I like how you both have created this environment to where you have a community of interest, but you're also allowing people to touch each other. We're having conversations that actually have substance and core. And I believe that that's a core element of how you've envisioned this entire project, which is completely different from a lot of other Twitter spaces, because it's all about the synthetic nature of creating a drama, creating a crisis, then following that crisis with some more drama so that it can go into more engagement to engagement farm, versus this being an authentic, hey, take your time, bro. Let's get to know each other. I want to touch your DNA and let my soul touch your soul so we can discuss things that are created for our audience. That's value prop. I see value prop here. I don't see a lot of it anywhere else. The reason why you meet me in space is because I feel that I'm very important, and I believe that everybody else is important too. So I want to share important things with important people.
Yeah, dude, I appreciate that. That's one of the more amazing testimonials that we have, and just appreciate it. Maddie, I'll let you go with your final thoughts, and I'll polish it off and give the roadmap for the rest of the week for Midlife.
Well, my first thought is thank you for sharing such thoughtful responses. You listened to our questions, you thought about what it was, but it wasn't just a one-word answer. You gave background, you gave the why, not just the what. And I think that that's very powerful. I loved hearing your story. I am a big proponent that people need to know that people in this space come from all different backgrounds, all different walks of life. And there's nothing that can shut down, even if you're somewhere bad right now, man, it's like people need to know they can turn it around. And we're powerful creatures, you know what I mean? And so the mind is very powerful as well. And I think you shared a lot of that, and I really love that. Obviously, I think you and I definitely agree and vibe on a lot of these different areas when it comes to both spirituality and when it comes to martial arts. So there's kindred spirits there, which I'm excited. I'm excited to keep this friendship going. But on top of that, a tremendous amount of educational value. Um, I am honestly, I'm a layman when it comes to cybersecurity. I really don't know a lot about it. I think the most I know is like proton mail, and I just learned about Signal. When Mikey was telling me about it, I was like, "What? What did you have to contact?" And so, I'm new to this stuff. And I recognize it's interesting because I'm so versed in physical security. It's weird to be so vulnerable in cybersecurity. And so I just think that this is one of those things that, in the same way that I think that everybody should, I think that proponents, the reason I want people to learn martial arts is just because you have options, right? It's another arrow in your quiver. And so I think that cybersecurity is just like that. And I hope that, more people will be able to listen to that. I'm really excited to put these clips out there because I think that just more people really need to know this stuff and know where they can find out more information and get to somebody they can trust. And so it's been an amazing conversation. It's been awesome getting to meet you. I'm excited to continue our friendship. And yeah, it's going to be great. Thanks you.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, yeah.
And I'll add, man, so much to say. But like, one, thank you for it. It amazes me. And like you said, I think it's a testament to just kind of the style that we have here. But like, you shared some really vulnerable stuff. And by the way, you're a cybersecurity expert. So the one person that you would think would not do that would be you, but you did it anyways. And I think that just goes to show like how good of a conversation that we had. So I just appreciate that vulnerability to say this with everybody, whether they decide to take us up on the offer or not. But we just had one of the most epic 2.5 hour first friendship conversations you've ever had. So this is the beginning of our friendship, and you're more than welcome to join the ride because we've been doing this for 3 years. 2 years of it, we did it to 150 followers playing video games. We've been doing it for about a year now in the Web3 space. We ain't going anywhere, and we want to win together. So you win, we win, the whole thing comes around. So really looking forward to growing the relationship. And then 3, you're just a kick-ass dude, man. I appreciate you, and thank you for taking the time because I know you're busy as well. And with that being said, we will figure out how to talk offline to continue to collaborate. By the way, people love you. The chat has been going the whole time. We already got multiple. This is my favorite stream of all time. Lots of hilarity and laughs as you're dropping. I love my girlfriend, but she has a headache. Drinking malt. That was. You had a lot going on, man. It was awesome.
Yeah, it was. It was intense.
But with that being said, Midlife is going to be back 2 more times this week. Thursday, we got our friends from Citadel back. They're about to drop Pilots, which is some of the most insane artwork I've seen in this space. This guy is a savant speed painter. Don't know how he figured it out, but he did it, and it's amazing. And then Friday, we have our friends from Cryptoria coming. Special time. It is going to be 11 a.m. Pacific time to, what is that, 2 p.m.?
2 p.m. Eastern
2 p.m. Eastern on Friday. Special midlife crisis time. Cryptoria coming on. They're from London, so we had to make some adjustments. And with that being said, people, we will be back on Thursday with Citadel. Midlife.